I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati. I'm your host, sabrinasalvati.
All right. Happy Thursday, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Sabby Sabs Podcast. I'm your host, Sabrina Salvati. If you're new, I want to let you know that Sabby Sabs Podcast is a part of Revolutionary Blackout Network. You can catch me there on Thursdays for the Sabby and JB show, and you can catch me here on Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and every other Sunday. I want to give a shout out to everyone watching on YouTube, Rockfin, Twitter, and Rumble, and welcome back, guys. We have two guests tonight, as well as news stories. Really quickly, I do want to go ahead and show you the thumbnail so you know what we're going to discuss tonight. We have a jam-packed show. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, Scott Ritter will be here around 9 p.m. Eastern time. He has a lot to discuss. We're also going to discuss Cenk crushes Alan Lichtman. That'll be a fun story for all of you. We're also going to dive into Netanyahu's arrest warrant. That was announced today. We're also going to discuss AOC's sneaky vote. What is that all about, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know. We'll get into it. We're also discussing the Congressional Black Caucus is selling out. And who are they selling out to? What does that mean for Black voters in this country? And last but not least, MSNBC is in big trouble. If you haven't heard the news, we're going to get into that as well tonight. Like I said, we have a big show tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go ahead and give a shout out to patrons, and then we'll bring in our first guest. Shout out to everyone who is a Sabby patron. Thank you so much for your support. Really do appreciate you. If you're interested in being a Sabby patron, I have 5 categories. Ultimate, Sabinators. There's also Sabsters. Give a big shout out here to the Sabbies as well. Let's not forget about them holding down the fort. And of course, they're also members. All of their names are featured here. And you can also see their names scrolling across the bottom of the screen there on the ticker. I want to give a special shout out to new Sabby patrons. We call them newbies. Let's give it up for Ishtar, Brandy Weaver, Shahid, and John Otello. Thank you so much for your support, guys. And now we're going to go ahead and bring in our first guest. This is a big story here in Massachusetts. Our first guest, her name is Tina Degree. She is from the Community Advocates for Justice and Equality, and she is representing the family of Anthony Hardin. Let's go ahead and bring in Tina. Tina, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me, Sabrina.
So, Tina, I want to get into this, and I shared this before on the show about Anthony Hardin. Anthony Hardin, for those who are not aware, he was killed by police. He is a resident, or was a resident of Fall River. He was 30 years old. But Tina, I want to go to you. Please tell us as much about this case as you can, or as you can legally discuss.
Thank you, Sabrina, for highlighting this. This is something that happens daily, unfortunately, in the Black and brown communities, and it gets like no show time on our regular news channels, as well as in social media. So Eric, from my understanding, Eric was at home. There was a phone call made into the Fall River Police, something related to domestic violence. They entered into his home. With only being there 2 minutes, he was shot from them entering in his home. They stated that he was wielding a knife. So let's be clear. He was shot by a female officer. She was actually the rookie officer. She wasn't the veteran officer. Her partner was the veteran officer, and she shot him. Like I said, he was sitting on his bed, but they said he was wielding a knife at the veteran officer. So now I don't know how they could assess the situation within 2 minutes to state that there was some type of danger or anything happening, and this young man was sitting on his bed in his own apartment. She stated the reason she shot him was because her partner was in danger, or she felt like her partner's life was being threatened. There was no knife found at the scene. And then there was another officer that called into the sergeant and said, "Oh yeah, I moved that knife. I saw the knife and I moved that knife." I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that, first and foremost, no one should tamper with a crime scene. Secondly, it was an officer that wasn't even on the scene. However, he stated he not on the scene. The first two officers, again, was a female and another male. And then this officer called back to his sergeant and said, "Oh yeah, I saw that knife. I moved it." Hence, he was fired because he tampered with a crime scene. So he fell on a sword. I don't know if most people understand that there's a blue curtain rule or law amongst police, is that you have your brother's back. And that's something that I learned in criminal justice at UMass Lowell when I first got there. This blue curtain law is that, they protect one another. So again, there was no knife found, but this officer called back in later and stated that he moved the knife, the so-called quote unquote knife that Anthony Harding, supposedly was wielding at the police officers. They handcuffed him. He bled out on the concrete.
So wait, just so I understand. So they shot him first, and then they handcuffed him.
Yeah, he was handcuffed. Yeah.
So let me show everyone the picture, because the officers. It says on the website the officers involved: Officer Chelsea Capellone and Officer Michael Sullivan. So you're saying that this is the female officer that shot Anthony?
Yes. Yeah.
Is she still employed at the police station?
Oh, yes. Right after she shot Anthony, she was given a medal of valor.
Okay. So I just want to make sure I understand the situation. I guess the first question I have is they entered his home.
Yes. A phone call was made. Again, a phone call was made, I guess, from a girlfriend or upset girlfriend or ex-girlfriend, stating something about domestic. There was a domestic situation, domestic violence, and they entered in. Like, again, they were only there 2 minutes, and they were only in the apartment 2 minutes before he was shot.
Was the woman who made the call, was she inside the apartment when they arrived?
I'm not sure of that. I don't believe so.
So I guess where I'm a little bit confused, if the person who said that they were being attacked, if they were there, then what gave the police liability to enter the home? Did they knock on the door and he opened the door, or did they break the door down and enter the home?
I'm not clear on that piece, Sabrina. I want to say that they just entered into the home. I'm not really sure. I'm not really clear on that piece. I'm not sure of if she was still there or she had left. It did. That didn't even come up.
Well, do we know if there were any witnesses to the gunshot?
No, the family actually put out a reward, a $10,000 reward, asking for witnesses to come forward that might have seen anything that happened that night at Anthony's home. I'm sorry. Eric is his brother. I'm sorry. At Anthony's home. Also, when they went to get all the evidence, there was a lot of stuff. It was heavily redacted. Even videos from the body cams or whatever was not being given to the family or to the attorney of the family right away. His brother, Anthony's brother, Eric, had to sue the Bristol County to actually get all this information, all this discovery. And he also sued them and won for them to unredact all the heavily redacted reports.
Do you know if the police officers, when they entered the home, were they wearing body cams?
Yes, they were.
Has the body cam footage been released?
It has been given to the family. I don't know if I believe it has been. We had a rally last month, and Eric had a big screen TV, and he actually had a lot of the video footage on that TV, what he was allowed to put on the television. So.
Okay. This case, again, Anthony Hardin, for those just joining, he was 30 years old. Police officers entered his home after there was a call from what was believed to be a girlfriend or ex-girlfriend of domestic abuse. They entered the home, and this officer here, the female officer, shot and killed Anthony Hardin. According to Tina, they were wearing body cams. Now, the female officer said that he was wielding a knife. But what was later revealed is that apparently the knife was moved by one of the officers who apparently was suspended. Now, these two officers here, Officer Michael Pavo and Officer Eric Bentoncourt, were they also present at the scene?
I believe they came afterwards. They weren't like immediately on the scene, but they came afterwards. Like they came in pursuit right after.
Okay, and there were additional witnesses, paramedic.
Yes, the EMTs. Yes.
Do we know how long it took them to call the EMTs after he was shot?
Not clear on that. It took them some time because again, he died in front of his apartment. He died.
Correct.
He died at the scene.
Okay, so the family is looking for more information. It says the family is offering a $10,000 reward for information leading to the truth. Was this, do you know if this was an apartment complex or was this like privately owned landlord?
It was an apartment. It was an apartment complex.
So Anthony had neighbors. Yes. Have any of the neighbors been willing to come forward if they heard or saw anything or no?
Not at this time.
This is a really sad case because I'm just thinking anyone can make a call and can say, hey, I'm being attacked. This is a domestic dispute. And from what I'm hearing, the police first response was to charge in and shoot first.
Yes. Yeah.
But
not just shoot first. I mean, the young man was sitting on his bed. So I'm not really sure how they felt like he was a threat wielding a knife if he was sitting on his bed.
Right. Correct. I'm not as familiar with Fall River. But has anybody in the family reached out to any of the city officials in Fall River?
Not to my knowledge. I know that the Bristol County District Attorney is actually close with one of the officers that was there on the scene. So in hindsight, he really shouldn't be even working this case.
Correct. That's what I was wondering about, how close they are to law enforcement. When I first heard about this case, it was, I'm not going to say who reached out to me, but there was someone here locally that reached out to me to tell me about this. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because oftentimes when we hear about police brutality cases, it doesn't usually involve Massachusetts. It's usually Chicago or New York, and I think a lot of times people just assume that we don't have these incidents here, but we do. And the problem with this case is that the officers are saying that he was wielding a knife, but we have no proof of that. And one of the officers apparently moved the knife that he supposedly was wielding. And if there wasn't a knife in his hand, that means that he was unarmed and they shot him anyway.
Correct. But this isn't, I mean, Sabrina, this happens a lot, as I said, and a lot of times it's not in the news. As a matter of fact, Friday will be his anniversary, 2 years that Anthony has been gone from his family. And December 19th will be also, I want to say, 3 years that Moses Harris, the same thing happened in Lowell, the city that I live in. A domestic call, cops tracked him down in a parking lot. You know, he came out with his hands up, but they were pointing something at him. That video was released on Fox 25, I believe. It was like a 10-second video. You know, and they chased him into the Concord River. His body disappeared December 19th, showed up again in March, 77 days later. The police in Lowell stated that he jumped. Moses Harris did not jump in that river. But they also didn't do everything they were supposed to do. Even if he did jump, they're public servants. And they didn't jump in behind him or try to save him, or even in the area that he was in. There's a fire station 30 seconds up the street. They could have called and had, rescue teams in there. Like I said, this happens often, and it's never put on the news. It's never, highlighted. A car accident on 495 gets more highlight than what a murder of a young black male in the state of Massachusetts. Police brutality it goes on every day in the Black and Latino neighborhoods. This is why I'm an activist. This is why we do what we do, to shine a light on it and stop this behavior. You have murderers and you're giving them a license to kill our children, our brothers, our fathers, our nephews, and they with no recourse at all. Like they have no, I don't know, no, they do it and think of it as it's okay, just another black man murdered. That's fine with them.
Exactly.
And they never want to take accountability. They never want to take liability. They'll sit there and state that they'll pay, we'll give you $5 million, but we ain't taking liability. So why are you giving anybody any type of money? And you really can't put a price tag on a child's head. Like, how many more black mothers have to cry? How many more black men have to die before people actually get it right and say, these are murderers that they're putting on this force. These are murderers that they're giving a badge to. I could give you more than just Anthony's story, more than just Moses' story. The black and brown man is under attack, and their goal is to make them extinct, basically, in my eyes.
Well, another thing about this too is this is why I've tried to tell people over and over again, we all are familiar with George Floyd. However, there are many George Floyds that you just never hear about. Many of you probably never heard about Anthony Harden's case until tonight. And you probably would not have until tonight. And I'm curious, do you know if the family reached out to local news stations to publish the story or the body cam footage?
Yes, they did. I'm not really sure of the response. I know not only just Anthony's case, again, Moses Harris, several families reach out all the time to the local stations, but I guess they just feel like, it's not worth reporting. Again, like I said, an accident can happen on 495 and it gets more coverage, than the murder of a black man. And it's really sad.
This is why I continue to tell people there are more police brutality cases than you realize. They're just not covered. The ones that you hear about, like they're the lucky ones that it receives some type of press, but most of the time that's not the case. So it happens more often than people may realize. And also this happened in Fall River. If I would argue that maybe if it would have happened in Boston, it might have received more attention. But it's very troubling that this continues to happen and there's no accountability. The fact that this female officer received a medal for shooting this and not only that, but to move the so-called weapon. What kind of knife was this anyway? Was this a pocket knife or a kitchen knife?
It looked like a steak knife to me. The knife that they put out there for people to view, it was a steak knife. And my thing is, if her partner, who was the veteran officer, felt like his life was in danger, how come he didn't pull his weapon?
Right.
Why did she pull her weapon?
Right. It feels
he's supposed to be more trained. He's supposed to be more, actually quicker on the draw, if you will, than she is. So if he felt like his life was in danger, why didn't he pull his weapon? But the other piece too, Sabby, is that, they are going straight to murder when it comes to a black man, a black and brown man. They're not using, they're using deadly force instead of just shooting to harm or, shooting them in the arm or the leg. Actually, I was reviewing that last week. The stats is that there's still a national law that a police officer isn't supposed to shoot to kill. They're supposed to shoot to either disarm, or maim, hurt some in their shoulder, in their leg, somewhere, not to kill. And these officers right now are shooting to kill. They want to hurt these black men. They want to make sure that they don't breathe again.
Yeah, there was another incident that I covered. I think it was last year, where there was I think a 19-year-old boy in Cambridge who apparently was under mental duress at that point in time, and the police, you remember which case I'm talking about. The police showed up and they killed him.
Yes. Yeah. Instantly.
Had no weapon, nothing. I mean, it's really gotten out of control. I want to show people this part on the website here where it says photo evidence here. So this, I guess this is what they were saying was evidence. I see cards, and they put numbers on certain things. But I just don't, it says here, it says evidence photographs did not show a knife near Anthony's body. A knife was uncovered upon further investigation, buried among other objects behind a TV. And here's the TV.
Yeah.
Has anybody reached out to, and I know this could be far-fetched, and I'm pretty sure he gets a number of cases. Lawyer Ben Crump, he usually handles a lot of these cases of police brutality. Has anyone reached out to him?
Not that I'm aware of. I know with the Moses Harris case, we attempted to reach out to him. And the feedback we got was that, he was swamped. And also, this is Massachusetts. He's down south. So, I don't know if he would have, it's a lot to go back and forth, and it's a lot to, deal with a case, 800 miles away. So,
but he travels.
He does. He absolutely does. Yeah. But I don't think people shine the light on these situations enough for attorneys that are out there and good attorneys like Ben Crump to say, okay, I'll take that case. We did start with an attorney in Philadelphia that was looking at the Moses Harris case, and he was going to take it, but it was a lot. It would have been a lot for him to travel back and forth. It would have been a lot, to try and actually, deal with a case where he's in Philadelphia and the crime scene is here in Massachusetts. So we actually found an attorney, a great attorney in Massachusetts, that we're working with right now. And also Eric, Anthony's brother, he's an attorney, and they also have another attorney. Eric won the discovery on his own. The first one was with the Superior Court, as far as the discovery was concerned, and they ruled in his favor. And they also told Fall River that they needed to pay him his attorney fees. So then the Bristol County prosecutor went and took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court upheld the Superior Court's decision and added on more attorney fees. So they ended up owing him a check.
Really interesting. I guess one of the other questions that I have for you is where does it go from here with the girlfriend / ex-girlfriend? Has anybody heard from her? Has she spoken to the family members?
I don't think so. I would highly doubt it. I would highly doubt that. But
do you know
to my knowledge, I don't think so.
Do you know if there was any interrogation of her? Like, did the police talk to her at the police station?
No, but they actually brought the family in, and they were kind of interrogating the family before they told them that Anthony was dead.
So they interviewed the family.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Your guess is as good as mine, Sabrina. I can't make heads or tails of what these police officers do after they've murdered someone's child. I can't make heads or tails of it. They pretty much did the same thing to Moses Harris's mom as well. And they basically gave her an address instead of taking her to the crime scene of where everything happened. They just gave her the address and told her she was more than welcome to go over there. That was the last place that her child was seen.
Do you know if the family had a lawyer present when they spoke to the police?
I don't believe so. Again, Anthony's brother Eric is an attorney, so I don't think they immediately did. I don't believe they were expecting to get interrogated either, and then be told that their brother, their son, was shot by a police officer and he's dead.
Yeah, this is very fishy to me, and I really wonder where what happened to the girlfriend. It's very weird to me that the person who made the call seems to be nowhere to be found.
Absolutely. But we will continue shining a light on this situation. We have a rally coming up this Saturday, for Anthony, for Moses Harris, for a few other people, and the title of the rally is "Stop Murdering Our Black and Brown Men," stop police brutality, stop abuse of power, because this is exactly what they do. So the rally is going to be in front of the State House at noontime Saturday. Like I said, Friday will be Anthony's 2-year anniversary that he's been gone from his family. And I'm telling people to come out, show your support. We got to do more. We actually absolutely have to do more because it's going to get worse. In this climate right now, it's going to get worse. And we absolutely need to do a lot to protect our Black and brown men. I mean, I'm a mother. I'm a grandmother. I fear my 17-year-old grandson who has license now. He drives, and these police out here, they pull them over just because they're driving a Honda, or maybe they look suspicious. And but I tell my kids and I tell my grandchildren, I give them their rights. Actually, I tell them, you know what, I'm the first one you call, then you turn on your camera, so we can catch everything. This is one of my little guys right here. So I'm trying. Can you say hi? Say hi.
Hi. Hello.
I'm doing everything in my power to make sure that they're aware, they know their rights, and that also that these police understand that, we're not just going to sit back and accept this anymore. We're not going to accept the fact that there's no accountability for them murdering our Black and brown men. We're not going to accept the fact that they don't take responsibility. They're public servants. And for them to, actually sit there and say, they can give you a report that's heavily redacted. It was in both situations. This situation, as well as the one in Lowell with Moses Harris, everything was redacted. Everything was taken out. The police officers' names were taken out. Locations were taken out. Like, you signed up for this job, which means you have to answer to the public, which means you need to answer to the families. When someone is asking you what happened to my son, what happened to my child.
I hear you.
What gives them the right to say that they don't have to take responsibility? What gives them the right to say that they don't have to, again, say, you know what, I made a mistake or I messed up or whatever it may be. But instead, they're giving them medals and they're saying it's okay.
Okay.
And it's not okay.
Well, for those of you guys, Eric, please be sure to put the link to the website in the chat. Again, that's AnthonyHarden.com.
Yes.
If you can share that with everyone in the chat so that they can read more about this. Tina, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I hope you get some type of justice here. Thank you so much. Oh, I don't know what happened. Okay, I didn't know if she. Oh, maybe she disconnected. Okay. All right. Well. Oh, there you are. Oh, I was just saying, thank you so much for your time.
No, you're more than welcome. Thanks for having me again. Hopefully we'll be here soon with different news and better news. Again, I want people to know that we have rallying Saturday, 12 p.m. in front of the State House, Beacon Street side. Come out and join us. There's going to be many families of that have lost loved ones by being murdered from the police.
That's right. Thank you so much, Tina.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys. Again, Anthony Harden. I just want to share this one more time. Again, local story here, anthonyharden.com. Eric, if you can please share that website link in the chat with everyone. Thank you so much for that, Eric. It's, again, as I told you guys before, it's not just George Floyd, right? Like, this happens more often than people realize. You just don't hear about it because the news doesn't cover it. This story is rather local to me, and people did reach out to let me know about it. So please share this with other people. We need to get the word out about that. All right. Okay, let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Shout out to Anais. Sabby, I finally made it on time. Found your show after Dr. West announced his run. Hooked ever since. I've shared it to all my third-party curious peeps. Need more leftist independent media. Thank you so much, Anais. That's really sweet of you. Thank you, JB. I discussed DeNoris Richardson, a disabled Black man that was found hanging in Alabama near the Mississippi border. We are an endangered species here. Yeah, like I said, you just don't hear about it as you don't hear about most of these cases. Thank you, Hotspot Casino. Stop adding brown people to Black struggle. That's one of the biggest mistakes us as Black people make. Interesting point there, Hotspot. Sunlight says, question for the chat. Are any Palestinians rallying about tongue-tied? Are any Palestinians rallying about these Black American issues? Serious question. So I can't speak for everywhere else, but I know they were here in Boston and in Cambridge. There were a number of, like I said, it wasn't just Anthony Harden. There was another incident that I covered last year, another police brutality incident where they were rallying around that. I just found out about Anthony Harden more recently. So hopefully more people can share that case as well. All right. I already shared the thumbnail, guys. So go ahead and smash that like button. We do want to go ahead and cover one of the stories I want to go ahead and cover before Scott gets here. Scott will be here around 9 p.m. Eastern time. Tonight's theme is the world is on fire. That's right. And I was not expecting this. But apparently, for whatever reason, Today just seems to be a crazy day in the world of news, more so international news, but just all over the place. And that's exactly how it feels, like the world is on fire. For some reason, it seems like my camera looks tilted. Maybe it's just me. Am I in a slant? Is it this picture? It was the picture. Sorry. Anyway, the world is on fire. That is the theme tonight, ladies and gentlemen. One of the stories I want to get into, now this is a big one that you may not have heard about, but it does say something about what is happening to corporate media. I told you guys that corporate media is seeing a downfall. I told you guys that corporate media is dying. Okay, so this brings up the issue with Comcast, because Comcast just announced, and this is not good for MSNBC. Comcast announces a plan to spin off cable channels. This includes MSNBC, CNBC, and USA. So Comcast is cutting the cord with MSNBC. What did we tell you guys, right? Post-election, we told you the numbers were not looking good for them. It says Comcast announced a plan Wednesday to spin off most of its cable television networks into a separate publicly traded company. The new company will include USA Network, CNBC, MSNBC, Oxygen, Sci-Fi, and the Golf Channel. Comcast will retain key NBC Universal assets, including the NBC Broadcast Network, NBC News, NBC Sports, the streaming service Peacock, and the cable channel Bravo. The transaction will be structured as a tax-free spin to existing shareholders. This is coming from Comcast President Mike Cavanaugh. While we don't have a precise timetable for completing the transition, we are estimating that it will take approximately a year. Comcast owns NBC Universal. That is the parent company of NBC News. The move comes as the traditional cable television bundle faces stiff economic headwinds, most notably the rise of cord cutting and shift to streaming alternatives. Comcast cable portfolio still contributes to its financial bottom line and helps expand its cultural footprint. So, MSNBC News, we told you that they were struggling. They were having some difficulty. Eric, can you tell me if I'm at a tilt? I don't know why. It feels like I'm slanted for some reason. Anywho, we told you that MSNBC News was struggling financially. We told you that they were seeing some serious problems. And now you're starting to see that Comcast wants to cut the cord with MSNBC. Again, all of this is happening post-election. We told you that MSNBC, they were losing ratings. They're still losing ratings for their primetime shows. People are turning away from MSNBC and CNN because people feel deceived. People feel duped. Now, they don't want to get into all of that, but I'm going to tell you, people feel duped and people feel deceived because both of these particular outlets allowed people to believe that this was a close race. It wasn't. Both of those outlets allowed people to believe that Kamala was just soaring so much, whether it was the polls that they chose to share you where she was doing well and not showing you the polls where she was doing poorly. It's things like that. So what was interesting as well is that even on News Nation, Bill O'Reilly is calling it out. Even Bill O'Reilly is calling out where they went wrong. And as you can see, they were talking briefly about that clip of Mika and Joe Scarborough, where they were discussing that they went to go meet with Donald Trump. You guys know they got a lot of flack for that. Listen to what listen to what Bill O'Reilly had to say.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences, and you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge meteor story.
Why is it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in they're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin off.
Yeah, it is. It's a spin-off company.
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
what's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here
Yes,
it comes.
please.
So they're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why?
So remember, Rachel Maddow makes about what, 30 million? I think we said it was $30 million that Rachel Maddow is making. So just keep that in mind. Again, they are not going to be able to pay these people. I give it about maybe a year before you start to see some of these hosts look for work elsewhere, because where are they going to get this money from? The reality is you're paid in primetime news. You are paid based on not just your performance, but your ratings, right? Rachel Maddow had the highest salary on MSNBC News because she was receiving the most ratings at that point in time. So that makes you wonder, are they still going to be able to pay Rachel Maddow $30 million? I don't think so. I don't see how they can. I really don't.
Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you. They don't want any more of this.
You hear this? They'll give it to you, he says. They don't want any more of this. And this is a good point that he brought up. How many of you ever mix the two, NBC News and MSNBC? Do you guys ever mix the two? I mean, I really don't think about it. I feel like we hear more about MSNBC News more than we hear about NBC News. Or maybe that's just me. But he's saying that people mix the two. So now even Lester Holt is also starting to see a decline in ratings because people, I guess, are conflating the two. And it's just, I don't know. NBC News does a little bit of a better job than MSNBC. They're still kind of biased too, but I think they're better than MSNBC. So now they're getting mixed in with these guys, right? We cannot forget when we talk about the propaganda, Rachel Maddow sat there for years telling people about Russiagate. Did Rachel Maddow ever come forward and apologize for saying, oh, I'm sorry, I was wrong about that? No. That's the other thing. When they get it wrong, how often do they retract what they said? Are they apologizing to viewers right now for misleading them about how close this election supposedly was? What are the repercussions for misleading the public? Now, these outlets, they want to point fingers at social media. They want to point fingers at those of us that do independent media, and they want to say we're the problem. But they're the ones that are spreading the propaganda. They're the ones that are lying to people. They're the ones that had all these Americans thinking that this presidential race was close all this time. Now, listen to what Bill O'Reilly says about the why. This part's kind of funny.
Yes. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View.
Do you guys believe that? Do you think he's right? He said MSNBC is hateful. You know, I think when you have shows like Morning Joe that sits up there and they call Trump voters names and they call Trump names and they say who raised these people, that's Morning Joe. When you have Rachel Maddow using classism to describe how I guess Trump voters are just not educated enough. They kill me with the whole uneducated voters. First of all, let's debunk that. When you say uneducated voters, it gives people the impression that these people never went to school. So all of us had to go through K through 12, whether you were homeschooled, whether you went to a public school, whatever. So stop calling people uneducated that they went to school. Stop it. Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean that you're uneducated. So they kill me with that. So there's those numbers as well. Bill O'Reilly, I've had my gripes with him because he's been kind of all over the place too. But he is correct here. He's correct about that. He said they want them gone. Now he brings up The View. And it makes you wonder again, what have you heard coming from The View the past couple of days, post-election, and also leading up to the election? It has been very hateful. Sonny Hostin is out there calling people misogynist and racist, and it's sexism, it's misogyny, all these types of things. You know, they're labeling people in such a way because they didn't agree with their candidate, their chosen candidate that they wanted. They have been very hateful. That's just a reality. And I said it before and I'll say it again. The View needs to go back to being the show that it was when Barbara Walters first created that show. It was not a political show. It was a, lifestyle entertainment type show. They talked about lifestyle. They talked about celebrities. They talked about movies and TV and all that kind of jazz. And then somewhere along the line, they started to focus too much on politics, especially when Meghan McCain became a cast member of The View. Now we talk about the hateful. I got beef with Meghan too. Meghan McCain, you miss me, girl. Miss me, girl, because she's not my favorite person either. But one of the things that Meghan McCain said when she left the show is that the women on the show were cruel to her. And you know what? I believe it. Now I believe she was cruel too. But I just don't see any of those women being nice. It's very catty. And it's like this girls club where, like, if you don't agree with us politically, if you're not on our side, we don't really want to be bothered with you. And that's the impression that I get from them. But I've watched them day after day get onto that show and spew rhetoric against people who either did not vote or didn't vote for Kamala, voted but didn't vote for Kamala, or were looking towards third-party candidates and were interested in voting third party. They shamed voters. They called people names. Whoopi Goldberg is an actress, right? I mean, look at all the people that came through that show. What happened to Rosie O'Donnell? What happened to the woman? She used to argue with Rosie O'Donnell all the time. Does everybody remember she was a cast member on Survivor? And that's how I think she got discovered. Elizabeth, I want to say Elizabeth, right? Look at all these people that left. Elizabeth had problems when she was on the show, had problems with the cast. Rosie had problems. Like, they just cycled through people. And so to me, it's like that says something about the show itself, right? So I think he has a point. Now he's alluding to, he thinks they're going to try to cut ties with The View as well, because again, it's hateful. How are you bringing people together if you're just demonizing people all the time, telling people that they're uneducated, saying, who are these people, calling everybody misogynist and everybody sexist? How are you bringing people together in that way? Right? And it's a morning show. So is that what you want to hear at the start of your day? Ay, ay, ay.
And you saw that today or yesterday when Sonny Hostin had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers got Whoopi Goldberg's ear, and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it. So it is over for these far left networks. Done, never coming back. Dracula's stake in the heart. Who benefits? News Nation may, but CNN, which is on the ropes too, will probably get some MSNBC viewers.
Wow.
There you go.
What do you think of that? Well, I'm certainly not going to accuse them of not making sense.
Yeah, I mean, how can you? And I guess I don't know if Stephen A. Smith is now also either a co-host or a contributor for News Nation, but I know Stephen A. from sports. For those of you who are not aware, that's Stephen A. sitting next to Chris Cuomo. So I know about him from First Take. I used to watch him on First Take all the time. I had to take breaks from that because I can only listen to Stephen yell so much. But that's where I know him from sports. But I noticed he's been getting more into politics. So I don't know if he's kind of working with News Nation now or not. But Bill O'Reilly, again, like, every now and then he does make sense. Like I said, sometimes like I'm just like, Bill, be quiet. But I don't consider The View to be a far left show. I think he's wrong with that statement. They're not far left. I wouldn't even call them left. They're just the quote unquote status liberals. Like that's pretty much what it was. And they have two conservatives that are on the panel. You notice they always have more liberals than conservatives. Whoopi says she's supposed to be independent, but she not. I mean, it's stuff like that. Yes. Hasselback, that was her name, Elizabeth Hasselback. She was another one that had problems with the host on the show. See, I remember a lot of these things. So I think he brings up really good points. Now, one of the things that he mentioned was that Sonny had to read a legal note about Matt Gaetz. And I want to show you that as well. This is just another example of something they had to do because they were stating something as fact. And the legal note doesn't say that. Listen to this.
It's because he wants to make sure they look good on screen. Sonny, you have a legal note.
I do have a legal note. Thank you, Whoopi. Matt Gaetz has long denied all allegations, calling the claims, quote, invented, and saying in a statement to ABC News that this false smear following a 3-year criminal investigation should be viewed with great skepticism. That DOJ investigation was closed with no charges being brought.
We'll be right back.
So as you can tell, Sonny obviously didn't really want to read that message, but Sonny's a lawyer, so she should have known better, right? Instead of making those statements, you know better. Now, that brings up this question. What happens to MSNBC now? And I think you guys are going to get a kick out of this one. Guess who is entertaining buying MSNBC? None other than Cenk from the Young Turks. I can't even make this up. Get ready to laugh, folks. Cenk said, imagine if the Young Turks bought MSNBC. We'd need financing to do it. Oh, they need money, y'all. They need money. Here we go. Here's the next grift. Here we go. We'd need financing to do it. But imagine if we turned it into a populist channel. It would get far better ratings and could actually help the national conversation. It would be the ultimate sign that online media has won. So if I remember correctly, I think Cenk started with MSNBC. Originally, he was, part of corporate media. He got tired of the way that corporate media was covering certain stories. It was particularly, particularly around President Obama, the way that they were covering for Obama. And he was pretty tired of that. And so he decided to start TYT, which at that point in time was like an online show, and it evolved into so much more, right? But it's just interesting. Now it's like, why would you want to go back into that realm? Like, I thought the point of TYT was to break away from that, to not be a part of cable news, right? So why would Cenk now want to entertain buying MSNBC? I think they're good where they're at. And he's right. They would need the money to do it. And I wonder where that money would come from, right? Like, it would probably come from you guys. I don't know. Like, they'd say, hey, donate to this so we can try to purchase MSNBC, right? So I don't know. I don't know about that. But people in the chat, this was interesting. Bob the Builder said, I'm sorry you've destroyed your credibility. The Young Turks have always presented itself as left-leaning quasi-news platform. Your recent shift is fascinating, but it comes across as which way is the wind blowing type of change. You don't have it. Sorry. Terry Van says only people over 65 watch cable news. Stay where you are. ALX said, what would be the fate of Rachel Cuban's program? Commotion King. I watched videos of you guys on YouTube today for the first time in a very long time. I'm part of MAGA crowd that truly roots for your voices to be in the mix. I'm wishing for the best future that can be going forward and I root for you as well. Best wishes. Interesting. I don't know. Mike McGinty says Cenk's been getting cozy with Elon. Yeah, I heard him tweet something about that as well. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? I should have created a poll about this question. Like, how do you feel? Law of self-defense says, so that's why you've been buttering up to Elon Musk the past few days. Worth a shot, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I kind of feel like it kind of takes away from just being online news. Like, if you're going to go to cable network, this, like, why? And then he said we could bring a populist lens to it, but I would imagine, again, like, you would still belong to someone else, and I don't think you would be able to get that message across on cable news. I mean, call me like crazy, but I just don't think, I don't know, this sounds like a new grift. Just keeping it honest. I don't know. I don't think that's a good idea. But that's what's happening, folks. MSNBC is definitely experiencing some serious concerns there, some troubles. Oh, I would love to be a fly on that wall, ladies and gentlemen, in that studio to hear what's being said among Rachel Maddow, among Joy Reid. I wonder what that conversation is like. All right, let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Holy smokes, man. Thank you, New York Varsity. Want to know who is celebrating? Joe Rogan. They lied about him taking horse dewormer and doctored a video making it look like he said Harris will win. I remember that. Yeah, I guess Joe does get the last laugh, huh? JB says it got very political when Rosie O'Donnell and Elizabeth Hasselbeck were on the show. Yes, that's right. That's right. Because Rosie and Elizabeth used to butt heads all the time. Like, bam, bam, bam. I remember that. Thank you, David. George Takei is on a political commentators list on Blue Sky. What? We desperately need you on there, Sabby. LOL. Building some leftist solidarity there. I don't know about Blue Sky. I don't know. I don't know about all these other outlets and stuff, because I just kind of feel like that's another platform you got to deal with, like another thing and another this. And George Takei, what a joke. Okay, I think Scott is here. Scott, whenever you're ready, if you just go ahead and give me a thumbs up and I'll bring you right on in. All right, based. Go ahead and bring up my thing here. Give me just a second, guys. I'm just bringing up my. Thank you. All right, guys. My special guest is Scott Ritter. He is a former United States Marine Corps intelligence officer, former United Nations Special Commission weapons inspector, author, and commentator, and he happens to know a lot about Russia. Welcome back, Scott.
Well, thanks for having me. I have to say that I'm very happy to hear that you don't like George Takei either. I love him in Star Trek, but on social media, he's not my favorite person.
No, he's terrible on social media. Oh my God. Terrible.
He probably thinks I'm terrible on social media, but I mean, it is what it is.
I hear you. Well, Scott, I want to start out with the breaking news. My theme tonight is the world is on fire. Because there has been a lot of international news that was published today. It's been nonstop. The first big story that I want to get into is the arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu. If you guys have not heard about this, it broke earlier today on CNN. Check this out.
The International Criminal Court has just issued arrest warrants for Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, accusing them of war crimes in Gaza, and also for a top Hamas commander, also known as Mohammed Deif, who is believed to be dead. The court says it found reasonable grounds to believe the prime minister bears criminal responsibility for war crimes, including starvation as a method of warfare. And it rejected Israel's challenge of the court's jurisdiction over the matter. CNN's Nick Robertson joins us now from Jerusalem. Nick.
And we don't really need to hear from Nick because we got Scott here. But this is huge news. I don't think everybody understands what a big deal this is. First of all, we know that the U.S. is apparently not fond of the International Court because of the things that they have, said about Israel, trying to hold Israel accountable in some way, shape, or form. But the fact that they have now issued an arrest warrant for Benjamin Netanyahu, this is actually huge news. Now, I want to hear from you, Scott. Where do you think this will go from here? What is going to happen? First of all, do you think they will actually be able to detain him, or do you feel like the U.S. will try to intervene and prevent him from being arrested?
Well, first of all, you need to understand that neither the United States nor Israel recognizes the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. They're not signatories to the Rome Convention, and so there is this issue of jurisdiction right off the bat. Two, I doubt Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be traveling to a Rome signatory state anytime soon, and so they're not. They can't send a SWAT team into Israel to get him. He would have to travel someplace. And three, any nation that thinks about arresting Benjamin Netanyahu will, in effect, be declaring war against the United States. First of all, let me just say that I think this is awesome. I love the fact that Netanyahu has been indicted because it just backs up what the world already knows, that he is a war criminal. He is the maniacal leader of a genocidal apartheid state. And this is what needs to happen, that the world has to call him out and call him for what he is. I mean, that's the good news. The bad news is nothing's going to happen to this guy. The United States has passed a law, in a little extreme interpretation, but in short, if the International Criminal Court ever sought jurisdiction over an American serviceman or American diplomat for war crimes and detained them, we would send in military force to The Hague and forcefully remove him. It basically says we can intervene militarily to do, because we will not allow our service members to be under the jurisdiction of the International Criminal Court. That is a threat to the national security of the United States, according to the United States Congress. And because our government is so heavily weighted with Zionists and pro-Israeli types, we've automatically extended to Israel similar protections. We won't allow the International Criminal Court to hold jurisdiction over it. As Lindsey Graham, not my favorite person, has said, if we allow Israel to be held to account, then we are setting the stage for our own service members to be held to account. Now, this is a massive, huge double standard, of course, because we're okay for the International Criminal Court when it goes after Black Africans or bad white people in Serbia or Croatia. But no. The International Criminal Court wasn't meant to come after us. No, our war crimes are held to a higher standard, our own standard. We police ourselves. We don't need an International Criminal Court to step in to do that. The hypocrisy of this is outrageous. And here we have the International Criminal Court trying to do the right thing and understand, that their prosecutor, who I am not a fan of, by the way, I don't think much of him, but he was attacked viciously by the Israelis, by the United States, and as is their want, attacks took on a personal nature. They accused him of, sexual assault and things of this nature designed to, get him to back down, etc. He didn't, and the indictment is now a warrant, which is, like I said, awesome. But I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for it to actually be acted on. I don't think Benjamin Netanyahu is ever going to wear a pair of ICC handcuffs.
Well, what do you think about the statement that Glenn Greenwald mentioned on Twitter? He said that if they're going to issue an arrest warrant to Benjamin Netanyahu, then they also need to issue one towards Joe Biden and Antony Blinken. But I would assume they can't do that either.
Well, they can try. I would remind people about the vindictive nature of the U.S. government. Remember, we're dealing with people who thought it was okay to go to London to kill Julian Assange. Hillary Clinton wanted to drone him. In short, we have horrible people in our government who deserve to have ICC warrants put out for them, not just Biden and Blinken. But we will never let it happen. I would just ask people, how many Marines are in the ICC's division, Marine division? And you're going to say, well, they don't have a Marine division. I'm going to say, right, that's the problem. They don't have an Army. They don't have an Air Force. They don't have a Navy. We do. And at the end of the day, that's how we will resolve this issue. So the ICC would commit suicide. We would arrest every single one of their judges. And believe me, we have Delta Force. Delta Force will go out, drag them from their homes, put them on airplanes, and bring them to the United States, where they will be put on trial and put in jail for the rest of their lives. Their families will be killed. So this is what we do. We're not good people. I want people to understand that. We are not good people. And we would do this 100%. And I will say that if they go after Netanyahu, we will arrest every single judge. We will kill them, kill their families. And the ones we don't kill, we will bring to the United States, put on trial, and they'll disappear in a maximum security prison where they'll be Epstein before they know it. That's just what we do. That's the threat we have put down there. And there's not a single nation in the world that deals with the ICC court that is going to stand up to us. Russia certainly isn't, because the ICC has indicted Vladimir Putin. If you remember, they put an indictment out there. They accused him of child trafficking, an absurd charge. It seems many of the children he was accused of trafficking ended up in Germany. How did that happen? But it also shows the politicized nature of the ICC. It destroys its own reputation when it does things like the indictment of Vladimir Putin, because that means, are we supposed to take the indictment of Benjamin Netanyahu seriously? Now, when we read the indictment, of course we take it seriously, but you can't go around and allow the United States and people to pressure you to do an indictment that is purely political, which is the Putin indictment, and then say, but you can trust us on this other thing. And then the fact that they throw DEEF in there. I mean, basically what happened is they said, well, we can't have just two Israelis standing alone. We got to throw in a Hamas guy. So they just picked a random guy who's dead. They indicted a dead man.
That's what I was going to say. I thought he died.
I think the Israelis killed him. Yeah.
Really interesting. So what does this mean for Israel in the grand scheme of things? I mean, obviously, I think it's probably pretty embarrassing for them on the world stage, but what do you think that this does to their reputation? And there's already been a lot of damage done there. But what do you think will happen after this? I mean, do you think that Netanyahu will continue on, or do you think they're going to call for new elections?
Well, first of all, I don't think Israel has a reputation anymore outside of the United States. They have destroyed their reputation. This is one of the problems that Israel faces right now, is that they have done so much damage to the brand. There is no recovering from this. Israel will never recover from the damage that it has done. It will forever be known as an apartheid genocide state, a criminal state. That's the reality of it. And all this, this arrest warrant has done is confirm this in the eyes of many. It allows, a receipt, a document, something that says it's not just me saying this. Look, the ICC said these guys need to be held to account. Netanyahu is in a lot of trouble. Seymour Hersh just wrote a fantastic Substack piece last week where he talks about the additional problems that Netanyahu has. I mean, already you have the courts saying they're going to, start going after him for the many corruption charges that he has, even though he's the prime minister. Say, no, we're going to go after him. And you also have the court saying, we want to review the October 7th, disaster. What was Netanyahu's role in that? And there was criminal liability attached to that. And then you have these new charges where Benjamin Netanyahu apparently accessed the most highly sensitive document in the Israeli intelligence archive, a 12-page document that outlined Hamas's strategic objectives when it came to the October 7th attack. When you read it, you have to get permission to go into a special room to read it. You're not allowed to take notes, and you're not allowed to copy it. You're not allowed to refer to it outside of the room. It doesn't exist. And yet Netanyahu went there, got a copy of the page he was interested in, and broadcast it to the public. as proof that Hamas was undermining the hostage release. He said this proves it because that document talks about a scenario that has Sinwar, the former leader of Hamas, leaving Gaza to Egypt together with the hostages, where they would then go to Iran. He said, see, this is proof that Sinwar was never serious. He was never going to release the hostages. This is why you don't blame me, blame Sinwar. Except those familiar with the document say, yeah, but the next 2 pages say that was just an option somebody briefed to Sinwar. Sinwar rejects it out of hand and says, no, we stay here. The hostages stay here because we're trying to exchange the hostages for a ceasefire agreement. The problem wasn't Hamas. The problem was Netanyahu all along. And now he's being prosecuted for A, unauthorized disclosure of sensitive intelligence information, and B, lying to the Israelis using intelligence information. This is so sensitive that the judge prosecuting the case has sealed the file because it could lead to a civil war. It could lead to the collapse of Israeli society. Netanyahu's in trouble, so he's not going to be around a long time. Israel is dying as we speak. Their economy, $67 billion hit last year. $100 billion this year. They're dead. Their economy will not recover. There's no investments coming in. 60,000+ people evacuate from the north who have to live in hotels in Central that are eating up the Israeli budget like you wouldn't believe, although the Israelis lie because they the money that they're printing to pay for these hotels, they say, well, since we're investing it in the hotel room, we're going to put that as part of our GDP. So they're saying part of their gross domestic product that shows a growing economy is actually them paying for the hotel rooms of displaced, people from the north. That's the kind of thing. The port of Eilat shut down, bankrupt, because the Houthi have strangled them with the naval blockade. Haifa's under attack. Insurance for shipping's gone through the roof. Nobody's coming in. Turkey's cut off relations. People are cutting off relations. People are starting to boycott. It is game, set, match, done, finished. Goodbye, Israel. You're dead. And that's not me saying that. That's a former Israeli brigadier general who spoke on Israeli TV last month and said exactly that. He said, Israel is finished. We can't recover from this. It's over. It's just now a question of how do we want Israel to die? Kicking and screaming, taking everybody down with them, or peacefully in bed as we gently administer morphine and let them go bye-bye. And the goal right now is to put them in bed, give them the morphine and let them go bye-bye. But Israel will not recover from this. Saudi Arabia is a key to Israel's recovery. Remember the Abrams Accord that was Donald Trump's big Middle East diplomacy deal. The key aspect of that to make Israel, the economic hub for the region was normalizations with Saudi Arabia, normalization of relationship with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia just told the Russians, MBS met with Putin and said, no, we will never normalize relations with Israel until there is an independent Palestinian state whose capital is in Jerusalem. And Netanyahu and his ilk have said that will never happen. So what happens when it has to happen? In order for Israel to survive, they have to go down the path of making an effort to create a Palestinian state. One of the key aspects of that will be dismantlement of at least some of the West Bank settlements. And the second the Israeli government moves to dismantle the settlements, there will be a civil war in Israel. Again, not me saying this. This is the current president of Israel. It said even before October 7th that Israel was on the cusp of a civil war, and now he's calling out all the different issues. The former Prime Minister Omer has said the most dangerous threat to Israel isn't Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranians, or this. It's the right wing. Israel's at war with itself. If we, the CIA has been trying to get rid of Iran for a long time, and they've had trouble. If we took a report about Israel's economic, political, social health and just erased Israel and wrote Iran, and every time you had an Israeli name, just put in a Persian sounding name, and we read that report, and said this is the current state of Iran, CIA be going, we won. They're collapsing. It's over. Finished. It's done. They'd be doing the little Donald Trump dance. It would be finished. But because it's Israel, we all pretend it's not bad. Now we come back to reality, read a report that otherwise means a society is in total freefall, total collapse. Their military is being defeated left, right, and center. But because it's Israel, we fool ourselves and say, no. Everything's okay. It's not that bad. don't worry about it. It's that bad. And believe me, a lot of Israelis are starting to worry about it.
I know they also really depend on, or they were depending on tourism. I know a lot of people,
There's zero tourism right now. Zero.
There you go. There you go. That's a big one. And I'm glad you brought up Saudi Arabia, because I was going to ask you about that. What happens come January 2025? Because Saudi Arabia, they've kind of been in limbo, in my opinion. Like they're interesting, meaning that they're supposed to be an ally with the United States, but they're also a part of BRICS. So it's like they're friends with Russia, and they have like the U.S. as a fair weather friend or something like that. And they have spoken out against what Israel is doing. But some are predicting that once Trump starts his presidency in 2025, that Saudi Arabia is probably going to be more vocal about their support for Israel. Do you think that's going to change come next year, or you think they're still going to try to like wade in the middle?
No, this is not the Saudi Arabia that existed when Donald Trump was president last time. First of all, there have been many things that have happened, not just October 7th. Prior to that, you had China broker a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Iran. The whole purpose of the Abraham Accord, the normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel, was to create an economic potential so that there can be a military component, the creation of what we call a Sunni shield, a shield of Sunni nations to oppose the Iranian Shia crescent. The idea of the Abraham Accord is to perpetuate conflict between the Sunni and the Shia, to keep the region in permanent turmoil until Iran could be brought down. That's what the Abraham Accord was supposed to do. Today, China has brokered rapprochement. That means that there's relations between Saudi Arabia and Iran. It's gone beyond that. The Saudis and the Iranians are now having joint military drills. The Saudis immediately went to Iran during this crisis and said, we're not part of this. We want to keep on this track of both of us living, together in peace. Saudi Arabia, although it's not a full member of BRICS, is affiliated with BRICS. Iran is a full member of BRICS, and they're working on, their relationship. Donald Trump went there early on in his presidency. I think right after he was 2017, he visited. So if you remember the Dance of Swords, where he was sitting there with the sword and hanging, a man in a suit hanging out with the Arabs in their keffiyehs, and he was waving the sword, and the Saudi Arabians were dancing, and they were mocking him the entire time. He didn't realize it, but the Saudis were just saying, who the hell does this guy think he is? But if he wants to be here dancing the sword dance, we'll dance the sword dance. It's supposed to be a big tribal thing and all that. He may get to dance the sword dance again. The Saudis aren't going to be rude to the guy, but the idea that Saudi Arabia is going to drop everything they're doing and suddenly yield to the United States is absurd. Saudi Arabia is a strategic player right now, and they have cast their lot with China, with Russia, with Iran, with anybody but the United States. We're just not as influential as we used to be in the region. And it's going to be a big letdown because Donald Trump, I think, is still living in 2017, 2018, where Saudi Arabia took his phone call and did his bidding. Saudi Arabia today is like, no, we're not going to be rude to you, but nope, we're done. We're not impressed with your weaponry and all that because we're not in the war game anymore. We're in a different game. We're in the peace game.
It's very different now. So it was interesting. Glenn Greenwald has been on fire lately, but he tweeted, who would have guessed that Netanyahu would respond to the ICC's war crime arrests against him by calling everyone involved anti-Semitic? So this is already starting, you guys. That's so unlike Israel to scream bigotry and racism against its critics. Yes, the Geneva Conventions apply to Israel. So you've probably seen this, Scott, but Benjamin Netanyahu is basically saying now that it's anti-Semitic for the International Criminal Court to issue an arrest warrant against him. I think we know how this goes. And this is very dangerous too, considering what just happened yesterday, which I'll talk about later tonight about that the bill, HR 1449. which conflates anti-Semitism with anti-Zionism and also makes it difficult for people to criticize the state of Israel. The fact that so many people voted in favor of that in the House is also very concerning. But this idea that Netanyahu has, that if you even try to hold him accountable, that's also considered to be anti-Semitic.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've taken it to extremes. I forget where I saw it. It might have been another Glenn Greenwald. He has been on fire. I mean, I don't know where the guy gets the energy to, because he's doing quality appearances on shows and he's doing quality posting on X. It's like he must have a clone, but he's doing good work. But somewhere I saw that basically the Israelis are saying that to accuse them of war crimes is the new blood libel. You know, that's their big thing. So it's the new blood libel. You can't accuse us of war crimes. That's a blood libel. Well, no, it's bloody, the blood of the innocent Palestinian children that you've slaughtered, the women and innocent men and women that are dying. Yeah, there's blood, but it's not a blood libel. You are genocidal maniacs. You are war criminals, straight up. And all I can say about the new law is it's frightening as hell. But the First Amendment is the First Amendment. And if this is a Supreme Court that is, believes in original interpretation, then there's just clearly no ifs, ands, or buts. You can't control this speech. And Congress can pass no laws. I mean, that's the thing about it. The Congress has, this is the point. I want the American people to really absorb what I'm about to say. Free speech wasn't given to us by Congress. That's not how it works. Congress didn't say, oh, we're bequeathing free speech to the American people. We had free speech. It was ours. We consider it to be natural law, God-given law. We have free speech. And when we wrote the Constitution, we the people, we know who wrote it. It wasn't all of us people. Definitely wasn't people who look like you, Sabby. You guys weren't, nope, you weren't involved in the Constitution. Well, you were, but you were not humans. You were the property. But that's a different question altogether. But the people that look like me, we said Congress shall pass no laws that infringes on free speech, because we already had free speech. We already had free speech. Congress, it's not a gift of Congress. We told Congress, stay out of our free speech, stay out of our free press. And I think we have to insist that the Supreme Court maintain this. Congress shall pass no laws. Congress is now passing a law that infringes on free speech. It's literally the most unconstitutional law you have ever seen. And hopefully the Supreme Court will do the right thing and deem that to be unconstitutional. But the problem is somebody like me is going to have to say something and then be charged and then take it through the federal court system, which is a pain in the butt. Or we can get smart people. Glenn Greenwald is very smart, but he's in Brazil. Get similar people like him with legal backgrounds, and there may be a way to fast track and challenge the law right off the bat and jump straight in. But for the average Joe Schmo, we have to go through the whole trial thing, be found guilty, then appeal, lose on appeal, lose on appeal. Then, oh my God, if you want to go to the Supreme Court on your own, you got to prepare this brief. I've done this. You got to prepare the briefing. You have to publish a book, a literal book. It costs like $8,000 to do this. And then you submit your books to the Supreme Court, only to have them decide that it doesn't matter what the merits of the case are. We're just not taking it up anyways, because that's what the Supreme Court gets to do. The Supreme Court doesn't have to say a case. You can have the most meritorious argument in the world. The Supreme Court could say, yeah, we're just not doing that one today. One of the reasons why is they might say, we already have a constitutional precedent in place, and so there's no need to look at this. But you're like, but unless you link this to that precedent, I can't be free and all this. Supreme Court actually sucks. It really does suck. It's horrible because it's supposed to be the final arbiter, and it's very selective. It's very much elite person's club. It's not what the American people think it is, but it is the last stand of constitutional interpretation. And I would hope that it would determine that what Congress is playing with right now is a violation of free speech, because it definitely is. It's a violation. Congress shall pass no laws that infringe on free speech. And what are they doing? Passing a law that literally infringes on free speech.
You're right. And I just want people to understand, like, if you guys ever have time, please read the Constitution. If you ever have time, please. I'm just trying to tell you the number of things that are there. And they continue to say, like, Donald Trump is going against the Constitution, but they're going against the Constitution too. Like, there's things that they're doing too. So you got to pay attention to that. Scott, I want to show you what Justin Trudeau said about the arrest today. And this is interesting, guys, because Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, listen to what he said.
Now that the ICC has issued warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Canadian law enforcement is obligated to arrest them should they come to Canada. Will you allow that to happen, or will you step in to prevent an arrest?
First of all, as Canada has always said, it's really important that everyone abide by international law. This is something we've been calling on from the beginning of the conflict. We are one of the founding members of the International Criminal Court, the International Court of Justice. We stand up for international law, and we will abide by all the regulations and rulings of the international courts. This is just who we are as Canadians.
Now,
so what do you think about that, Scott, that Justin Trudeau said they would abide by those laws? And also, I don't know if you saw this, but the mayor of Dearborn, Michigan said that if Netanyahu stepped foot in Dearborn, Michigan, he would be arrested on site. Do you think that could be a possible path for people to reach out to their local politicians to enact that same law that they have now in Dearborn in other cities as well?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, the symbolism of making statements like that is very good, because, again, I think the goal here is to do everything you can to delegitimize Israel and delegitimize Israel's leadership. So anytime you have somebody speaking out about in a manner which reinforces the notion that Israel is a criminal state and that its leaders are warmongering criminals that deserve to be arrested and prosecuted, this is a good thing. But to be real, the Dearborn police have no jurisdiction. If they tried to assert jurisdiction, the federal government would come in and say you don't have jurisdiction and take and take Netanyahu away. And if a Dearborn cop wanted to make an issue of it, he'd die. Because and this is what I would tell the Canadians. First of all, I promise you this: Trudeau will never arrest Netanyahu. He's making a statement right now because it's the politically expedient thing to do, because he's under no threat of this. But if push comes to shove, there will be waivers. There will be, exceptions. He will never. Netanyahu could land in Canada, and he would never be touched by Canadian law enforcement because Big Brother down south wouldn't put up with it. We are so beholden to Israel. I don't know why, but we are as a nation so beholden to Israel, so utterly infatuated with Israel that we will debase ourselves to the nth degree just to be seen as always defending Israel. And so I have no confidence in the United States ever doing the right thing by Israel. This is why I'm such a proponent of Israel dying, because I recognize America can't cure the Zionist disease. It can't. We're infected. It's permanent. But what happens to the Zionist disease? I mean, to all those wonderful little evangelical Christians that pretend to be friends with the Jews, even though they hate the Jews because Jews killed Jesus. We all know that Jews killed Jesus. They're very bad people, but we need the Jews because we need them to do their little temple thing, and then Jesus is coming back, and then the rapture, and we're all going up to heaven, except them Jews because they're evil. They stay behind, those dirty Jews. Don't the Jews understand that the Christian evangelicals hate you? They view you as Satan.
I'm glad you said that, because I just wanted to add something here for people who may have forgotten. When the movie The Passion of the Christ came out, there was a lot of I don't know if you remember this, Scott, but there was a lot of pushback on that movie because of what you just said, because what that movie reveals is, oh, wait a minute. So this is what Christians really think. So I remember.
I tell you what, they in Germany they do. Oh man, that Eder Oberg guy. I'm butchering. I used to live in Germany, but they do the Passion Play, and it's a big deal every year, and people try out for it and all that. And then you watch it, and you're like, oh, you hate Jews too. You wonder why the Germans hate the Jews, because the Jews killed Jesus, and they play it out. And that movie was graphic. If you remember the death of Jesus, it was graphic. And no Christian went through that coming out going, I want to be brotherly friends with the Jews. They painted the Jews to be horrible, bloodthirsty, whatever. That's why I'm sure they called it a blood libel, but in their defense. I'm not saying anything about it. I'm just saying the reality that Christian Zionists hate Jews. And yet the Israelis are like, oh, you're so good to us. I love the fact that Mike Huckabee is now the ambassador to Israel. He will be. And he hates Jews. By definition, he hates them because he's all about the rapture. He's all about the end of the world. My God, why do we even allow these people anywhere near government? Government's supposed to be about promoting long-term thinking on how we make life better, thinking out strategically and all that. And all Mike Huckabee can be is like Armageddon, baby, and the rapture. I don't want him anywhere near government. Mike Pence scared me because he was the vice president. He was one heartbeat away from being the president, and all he wanted was nuclear war so that he could go up to Jesus and do his little religious nut job thing. I'm not anti-Christian, people. I'm just anti-Christian when they want to kill us all.
Well, I just want to add too, we're supposed to have separation of church and state.
We're supposed to, but we don't. If you think we do, think again. We have so much damn religion in here, but it's got to be the right religion. Can't be Muslims. They're not the right religion. Can't be Jews, although we pretend we like them, we hate them. And we got to be careful which kind of Christianity we live in, because them papists and them Catholics, they're not very good. And there's some other ones we don't like either. But oh my God, if you're a holy roller, a Pentecostalist, a Baptist or whatever, you're good. Christian, in God we trust. Judeo-Christian ethic. I mean, what happened? It's not supposed to be separation of church and state. That's an important part. There shall be no state religion. And yet, all these stupid Christians, I'm sorry, I did say that, that are in Washington, D.C., actually think that Christianity is the state religion. You've got idiots right now printing Bibles to put them in schools, public schools. Now, I'm not anti-Bible. I've read it cover to cover. Have to. If you want to converse, if you want to understand your enemy, you got to know what your enemy, and my enemy is organized religion. They are responsible for more death and destruction in the world today. If you say that you practice peace, you can't be pro-organized religion, because organized religion is about man killing man. It ain't about saving souls and doing right for the world. It's about we protect what is ours. And we will kill others out there who don't agree to submit to us. Your soul must be ours. I mean, it's just, sorry, it probably didn't where you wanted to take this conversation. But
no, I was just going to add, because I talked to them about this before, about my experiences like growing up in the church and different denominations within Christianity. You run into the same issue where one denomination says they're the right one and the other ones are the wrong one. And I've just seen it like over and over again, each to their own. But I really do believe in separation of church and state. And I would like to have
100%. I mean, I sometimes wonder, I don't know who God is, what God is. I believe there's a power. I don't think this all happened by accident. I think there's a purpose. I look at human emotion and I say that the conscious has to come from something. We do know the difference between right and wrong, good and evil. So I believe that there's a purpose to life. It gives me motivation to live and do good and try and continue it and all this stuff. But when you think you own God, then there's a problem. And that's the problem with Christian evangelicals, because they think if God is all powerful, then why are you worried about Armageddon? It's going to happen when God wants it to happen, because God wills it. But now you're out there trying to make it happen, which tells me you think you know more than God does, because obviously God doesn't need your help. He's all powerful. But you're now saying, I'm going to help him by picking the date, by doing this, that, and the other thing. You've become godlike. You think you're God. And that's the problem. Everybody thinks they're God. Everybody thinks they have the inside thing to God. You know, I'm not much of a, I'll tell you this. I studied the Bible and I debated it with a guy who was what I call he's Paul. You know, Paul, the father of the church, the Roman assassin who killed Christians, who suddenly walked across Damascus, saw a flash of light, and came up with this thing called Christ. Christ isn't Jesus. Christ is something different. Christ is the Father, the Son, the Holy Trinity, and all this stuff. Jesus was somebody who went around and healed people and talked to people and turned the other cheek and put ears back on the Romans after somebody cut them off, and was an all-around good guy. And when I read about Jesus, I'm like, she's a nice guy. I could live like you. I mean, I could imagine living like Jesus. You could be doing good things. But then Jesus disappears and Christ comes in. And Christ is used to kill and murder and dominate and this. And this is why I am so much against the Christian church, because it ain't the church of Jesus, I'll tell you that. There's not a church out here right now that calls itself Christian that lives to what Jesus does, because they've corrupted Jesus with Christ. Jesus was a Jew. His brother, James, who took over the church, was a Pharisee. I mean, he was part of the Jewish priesthood. But we don't want to talk about that. Anyways, enough religion.
Well, one other thing I wanted to show you with Israel is interesting that arrest warrant happened today, because this happened yesterday. And that was the U.S. vetoed the UN Security Council resolution. Everyone check this out really quick.
14 votes in favor, 1 vote against, 0 abstentions. The draft resolution has not been adopted owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council.
We made clear throughout negotiations we could not support an unconditional ceasefire that failed to release the hostages. Because, as this Council has previously called for, a durable end to the war must come with the release of the hostages. These two urgent goals are inextricably linked. This resolution abandoned that necessity, and for that reason, the United States could not support it.
So as you guys can see, once again, the U.S. decided to veto the UN Security Council resolution for a ceasefire. According to AOC, though, she tried to tell you that they were working tirelessly for a ceasefire. I told you guys that was a lie. That was never the case. But that happened yesterday, and then the arrest warrant was issued today. And it could just be a coincidence that the timing worked out that way. But what I wanted to know from you, Scott, is this whole back and forth with the UN Security Council and this gentleman raising his hand, or Linda Thomas Greenfield being the one raising her hand. It's starting to feel like this is just theater at this point. And then 2, how do we know the hostages are alive? And I've been thinking about this the past couple of days. When they continue to say no permanent ceasefire until the hostages are released, how do we know some of those hostages didn't starve to death too? Just like Palestinians in Gaza, because Israel wasn't allowing food and aid to come in. Do we have any proof that they're still? I don't even think we know.
I think the Israeli government is doing, their special forces are out there trying to gather information about the hostages. And because I don't have access to their information, but I do understand that, they are running active programs, human intelligence programs, signals intelligence programs, designed to pick up whispers here, conversations there, that there's reason to believe that a good number of the hostages are still alive. There's also reason to believe that their health is not very good, that they may be suffering from malnutrition, from disease and things of that nature, and that some of them have in fact died and aren't with us anymore. That's the reality of it. But I do believe that there's intelligence out there that supports the notion that many of these hostages are still alive, and the Israelis are, trying to, get them. But when I say get them, here's the kicker. I think the Israelis would prefer that they were all dead. They want them to go away. They dropped bombs indiscriminately. They didn't care about the hostages. This is the reality of it. The Hannibal Doctrine, which says kill people before they become hostages, is still in play today. The Israelis aren't trying to rescue. If it happens by accident, it happens. The Israelis are trying to kill all the hostages. And the hostage families know this now. They are aware of this. That's why they're outraged. Netanyahu isn't trying to rescue these people. He's trying to kill them. And if they locate them and they can't get down there, then they will drop a bomb on them. And there is story after story after story told by surviving hostages how, you were trying to kill us. They're furious. You were bombing us. We were down here. You were bombing us, the people you're supposed to be saving. You're trying to kill, and you killed these people. Because every once in a while the tunnel collapses and there's hostages down there. Wham, they die. The Israelis are trying to kill the hostages. A living hostage is bad news for Israel. They would much rather have all 101 surviving hostages be dead and done with. Now they don't have to worry about this. The political pressure's off. They're just dead. But a living hostage is a nightmare for Israel, and they're not trying to rescue them. If it happens through serendipity, they stumble upon them in a tunnel, then they'll get them. But the Israelis are not bending over backwards to rescue these people. They're bending over backwards to find them and kill them, because that's what the Hannibal Doctrine is all about. And we need to recognize these aren't good people. The Israelis are not good people. They view not just the Palestinians, but you, me, and every non-Jewish member of your audience watching. We're human animals. We're subhumans. We're less than human. We're goy. And they don't care about life. And so all these people are saying, poor Israel, poor this, poor that. Again, I'm not in favor of bringing harm to any human. I'm really not. But don't expect me to have sympathy for a nation that, as part of their DNA, is built in to kill Palestinians. Because that's what Israel exists to do today, kill Palestinians. And they show no remorse whatsoever for the death of Palestinians. None. You don't see Israelis crying about this. Even the people that are against Netanyahu, they're not losing any sleep about the Palestinians. Palestinians aren't human. They're, you see them. What about the children? No. They're, there was a saying, I don't want to insult anybody, but back in the American West, the Shivington, I think was his name. He was a colonel. And he massacred the Cheyenne and during the Civil War, the Sand Creek Massacre, I think it was the name of the massacre. They just rode in the morning. The Cheyenne were asleep, and they rode through and they killed everybody, women and children, all that. And when someone said, "What about the children?" the response was, "Nits make lice." Nits being the little infant lice, and they grow up to be lice, a parasite. So you kill the children because nits make lice. If you let the nits live, they become lice. And that was the white man's attitude towards Indian babies. And that's the Israeli attitude towards Palestinian babies. They view them all as junior terrorists. They just want them all dead. They don't care. There's no empathy. In World War II, an American doctor did a study during the Nuremberg trial because they were trying to figure out what made Nazi Germans so evil. How do you define evil? What is the characteristic? And remember, it's tough because these are people, who can laugh and tell jokes. If you see them in normal society, you'd say they're civilized, they're proper, they can eat with the knife and the fork, and they can do all this stuff. But they can also turn around and just order 6 million people killed here, 10 million people killed there. Remember, the Jews weren't the only ones who were killed during World War II. A whole bunch of other people died too, like 27 million Soviets. And he said the thing that united them all was a lack of empathy. The inability to empathize with your fellow human beings. so that you could see a soldier shoot a woman in the head while she's holding a baby and feel no emotion. Just, no, that's evil. The Israelis are evil. This is the reality, guys. They have no empathy whatsoever for the Palestinians. I can't talk about Hind Rajab without crying. And I'm a grown-ass man that doesn't cry. All right? I have more empathy for the Palestinians than any Israeli will ever have, because I care. You know, I care about them. And I have to be honest, when I see an Israeli suffering, I have empathy for them too. It's not like I don't have. I mean, I have empathy for any human being that's suffering, because there before the grace of God go I. I have been in situations where I have been faced with imminent death, and I know what fear is. I know what it's like to be so damn afraid that you're going to die, or that somebody close to you is going to die. The panic that overtakes you. And so when I see somebody out there, I get physically sick because I know what's going through their mind. I know what they're feeling. Empathy, empathy, empathy. I'm not a perfect human being, but I can empathize with my fellow humans. The Israelis can't. They're incapable of having empathy for the Palestinians, just like the Nazis were capable of having empathy for any of their victims.
Well said there, Scott. I do want to switch gears really quick to Russia, because there was also breaking news with Russia today as well. Now, what's interesting about this, at first I want to start with this. Let's go back to Biden, because this is all, and this all starts back with him. It was announced a couple of days ago that Joe Biden gave Ukraine permission to use long-range missiles inside of Russia. So I explained to people why that actually matters with long-range missiles. From what I read, it makes it difficult to actually pin down the target, etc. Vladimir Putin said if that were to happen, he would consider that to be an escalation from the West, not just from Ukraine. Ukraine proceeded to do that. They used long-range missiles yesterday. And now, and this broke, I don't know if everybody's seen this, this broke today. Now they are saying that the U.S. military base in Poland is priority target, Russia warns. Vladimir Putin has issued a statement earlier before I went live. He spoke, and to make a long story short, I was not going to play that whole speech here, but he said that he wants peace, but that he does consider this to be an escalation from the West. What happens from here? Because I get the impression from his speech, he does not want World War III. But I also got the impression that if he were to sit back and just allow this to continue and happen, then it would make him look like a pushover. What do you think happens from here?
Well, we all die. I'm not being facetious right now. I've never been more afraid of the imminent nuclear war than I am right now. We have pushed Russia into a corner. Russia has responded using a weapon of unprecedented strength. This variant of the Rubiev RS-26 missile that was used. Again, as a missile, Putin's speech, I would ask people to listen to it, even if you don't read Russian or understand Russian. Look in his eyes. Watch him as he speaks, and understand he has made a decision that if the West wants a nuclear war, the West has a nuclear war. He doesn't want it, but he's made the decision. He has said, all decisions have been made, all orders have been issued. There will be no more discussion. We automatically mirror what you do. So when you attack us with storm shadows and attackums, there's no debate. We don't ask ourselves, we will hit you. If you escalate and bring in a threat from Poland, we will take out the target automatically. There's no debate. And if you want a nuclear war, we will launch everything and kill you all. That's the decision that's been made. That's where we're at right now. All decisions have been made. All orders have been given. There's nothing to talk about except the West needs to stop doing what it's doing. It's very dangerous. He chided the Americans. He said, the weapon we used, used to be banned under the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. There was this is a treaty, just I think you know my background. I was a weapons inspector for the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. In fact, I have the honor of being the first weapons inspector on the ground in the Soviet Union to implement that treaty. This was the treaty that got rid of the most dangerous weapons in the world at that time. The Pershing II, the ground-launched cruise missile, the Soviet SS-20, their SS-4s, SS-5s. We got rid of them. These were the weapons that were going to bring us to war. And in 2019, Donald Trump withdrew from that treaty. Said, no, we're done. Accused the Russians of cheating, but when the Russians went, we're not cheating, you show us the proof. Wouldn't show them the proof. He just said, nope, we're withdrawing. And then immediately tests an intermediate nuclear range missile, which means that we've been planning on withdrawing for a long time, because you don't immediately test. There's about a year's worth of preparation going on there. And so, but the Russians said, okay, we're not going to develop intermediate range missiles unless the United States deploys missiles to Europe. Well, last spring we had an exercise in Denmark and we deployed intermediate range missiles to Europe. And Putin went, I warned you. I mean, this is the real Putin. I don't know why people think he bluffs. He doesn't bluff. He's very upfront about what he's going to do. He said, I'm not going to build these missiles unless you deploy missiles there. Then we deployed them, and he said, I warned you. And we went, no, but it was just an exercise. He went, no, you brought them to Europe. So he began building missiles. In 1983, the Soviets, because we were deploying the Pershing II missile to Germany, the Pershing II at that time, if you fired it 7 minutes later, it would hit Moscow. The Russians were scared to death of this thing. They're like, oh my God, it's there. So to respond to that, they built a new missile called the Skorost, the Speed. And basically it was just a modification of existing missiles. They took the first two stages of it, put a different warhead on top of it, a conventional warhead, by the way, and they were going to flood Germany and Czechoslovakia with these weapons. And the moment they detected the Pershing II doing anything, bam, hit it right there, right on the spot. Boom, 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 instantaneous. The speed, the Skorost. But then the INF treaty came in, people like me, and that was the end of that weapon because it was of the wrong range and it got destroyed and never got deployed in full strength. The Soviet rocket forces, the guys I've been talking to, Sabby, I just want to tell you, it really helps to talk to people. You learn a lot when you do. And the fact that the United States government doesn't want me talking to Russians tells you how important it is to talk to Russians. And I've talked to the Russian guys who are in the rocket force, and they're bitter about the INF treaty and all that because they view that as Gorbachev giving away their military capabilities. Boris Yeltsin made them weak, and Putin's been gradually strengthened. But even Putin they were frustrated with because he always played by the rules. Putin's like a fair guy. Well, Putin finally said, all right, you're going to do that. We're going to rebuild. The missile that the Russians used against Dnipro, the modification of the RS-26 is the new Skorost. America hasn't woken up to the fact yet that Russia, because we're threatening to deploy a missile called Dark Eagle, which is like a really modern hypersonic Pershing II. We're deploying it to Germany. And so the Russian military went, hey, baby, let's go back to the old playbook. And they've built a missile that now will be deployed, flood the zone, conventional warheads. And the moment we do anything, bam, it hits. You saw it. 6 independently targeted warheads. Each warhead had 6 large submunitions. It's saturated there. Remember, its job is to destroy an American mobile launcher. So when we bring the launcher out, here comes this thing in with its cluster warheads, wham, down on the field, everything dies. We did it to ourselves, and Putin said, you guys made the biggest mistake in your life because we had a treaty where none of this existed, but now we got it, and now you're going to pay the price. And America doesn't know how to do that. Now, I just want to say one last thing to set this all in motion. Biden in September said no to this. Do you remember?
Yep.
Flew down, all that stuff. Said no. Said we're not going to do that because he understood the risks. He was told by Lloyd Austin this could be a nuclear war. He was told by the Russians this could be a nuclear war. Straight up, Anatoly Antonov said, you do this, we're going to nuke America. And he went, okay, I'm not going to do it. Now he's done it. Why? What changed? One thing.
Well, Trump won.
Bingo. And here's the problem. Trump won. Why is a lame duck president hell-bent on taking us down the path to war when the person who won the election overwhelmingly is saying, I don't want war with Russia. I want to end the conflict with Ukraine. That's the will of the people, whether you agree with it or not. It's a democracy. The people voted. That's what the majority of people said we want to happen. And the person who lost the election, instead of respecting that, is moving forward in the exact opposite direction. They call it Trump proofing. Trump proofing. What constitutional right do they have to do this? Trump proofing. You know who's doing the Trump proofing? The deep state. The unelected deep state is doing this. They're afraid of Trump because Trump's come in and said, I'm taking the deep state down. And the other thing I have is Joe Biden hasn't said anything. They won't let him talk about this. He's not allowed to take any questions on this, which raises, in my mind, the possibility of a de facto coup d'etat being carried out by Antony Blinken, who was in favor of this all along, and Jake Sullivan, both of whom are beasts of the deep state, who are saying we have to Trump-proof everything so that it survives Donald Trump. But the problem is their Trump-proofing is leading us dangerously down the path towards a nuclear confrontation with Russia. They aren't going to back down. Putin just said, stop. But I guarantee you that Ukraine is going to launch another Storm Shadow attack. And then Putin's going to hit them with another Rubyezh. And then we're going to take umbrage and we're going to do something to help the Ukrainians by maybe firing a missile from Poland to take down a Russian missile. That missile site gets hit. Now, NATO says Article 5, and they launch a larger strike against Russia, and Russia nukes Europe. And here's the scariest thing about it, Sabby. Today, you don't mind if I call you Sabby? Should I call Sabrina? I apologize. I don't want to say, I don't want to feel.
I don't mind.
All right, I apologize because I want to be respectful. I'm always respectful. I just saw in your tweet that sometimes you use Sabby or people call you Sabby. So I took the initiative, but if it's the wrong thing to say, I apologize. My wife and my mom have raised me to be a gentleman, so I'm not to insult anybody. So, but here's the thing. Right after, because Vladimir Putin just signed off on a new nuclear doctrine for Russia that basically lowers the threshold for Russian use of nuclear weapons to about zero, meaning all the stuff we're doing right now, could Russia, he said, under our doctrine, I could use nuclear weapons right now. I could use them right now. How did the United States respond to this? Rear Admiral Buchanan of the United States Strategic Command, they're the ones who control all our nuclear weapons, came out and said, that's okay. We're not afraid of his nuclear doctrine because we're ready to have a nuclear exchange with Russia. And we think we're going to win. And we'll retain enough nuclear weapons so that after we have our little nuclear exchange with Russia, we can still have nuclear deterrence. You guys do know what a nuclear exchange means, right? Everybody understands that. It means a war where nuclear weapons are exploded on each other's territories. He is saying that the Biden administration has made a decision that it's okay to enter a nuclear war with Russia because we think we're going to win. I'm telling you right now, we would lose 100 million people plus in a limited nuclear exchange with Russia.
This is insane.
Thank you. It's insane, totally insane. But where's the press? Where's everybody? So I'm going to make an announcement, then I'll go back to you taking control of your program. On December 7th, there will be a rally in Washington, D.C. Say no to nuclear war. That's the hashtag. I want everybody to take that hashtag and run with it. Say no to nuclear war. We are bringing in some big names. We are going to be at the Lincoln Memorial. We're going to go down to Congress. We're going to go over to the White House, and we're going to be talking. And the whole idea is to say no to Congress and say no to Biden, say no to nuclear war. You can't kill us. We're not going to let you kill us. And I would hope that as many people as possible could come to attend this and add their voice to this. We have to stop this in the bud. If we have to nip it, say no to nuclear war. Join us. You're welcome. I don't know where are you based out? You're West Coast?
No, I'm in Boston area.
Come on down. Come on down. We can get you to say no to nuclear war too. We'll make this a whole family affair. But the whole point is, we have to stop this, guys. We really do have to stop it. In 1982, I wasn't part of it, but Caring Americans put 1 million people into Central Park to say no to nuclear war and say no to nuclear armament. And it worked. It led to the INF Treaty. If we put 1 million people in Washington, D.C. on the 7th, and we get out there and make our voices heard, we can save our lives. That's all I'm asking you guys to do. Give a damn about your lives. If you care, if you're parents that have little kids, say no to nuclear war. If you're single and you think you want to get married and start a family, say no to nuclear war. If you're single and you don't want to get married and have a family, but you like your dogs, say no to nuclear war. If you're a human with empathy, say no to nuclear war. We have to say no to nuclear war. And there is no tomorrow. I'm telling you right now.
Yep.
We're going to war with Russia and we're all going to die. We have idiots in the Strategic Command who think it's okay to have an exchange, a nuclear exchange. He just condemned 1/3 of Americans to die. He just condemned them, saying it's okay. And he wouldn't have said it if the Biden administration didn't think we have to put the American people on notice that we might have this little nuclear exchange with the Russians. Guys, it's nuclear war. Nobody survives it. There's a book written by Annie Jacobson called Nuclear War. It's fiction, but she interviewed dozens of former officials who did the war planning, who were in Strategic Command, who did all this. They know the procedures, and she created a realistic scenario talking to them about this, how this happens. You know how long we have to live once nuclear war starts? 72 minutes. From the time the first bomb hits until everybody's dead, 72 minutes. That's it. That's how quick this can happen. Say no to nuclear war. Come on out on December 7th. This might be the only chance you have to stop a nuclear war, the only chance you have to have a Christmas, because the Biden administration has been hijacked. There has been a coup that has seized control, and they are aggressively moving towards a decisive confrontation with Russia, which will go nuclear. There's no other option. Russia will not back down. And as Vladimir Putin said, all decisions have been made. All orders have been given. It's on full automatic. It's up to you. We know what we're going to do. You have to decide to opt out of escalation. And the Biden administration isn't. They got a general saying, nuclear exchange. He's excited about it. Guys, we're all going to die unless we make sure they understand we don't want to die. And we can only make them know that if we come. I've invited President-elect Trump. I've invited Bobby Kennedy Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Don Jr. Who knows if they'll come? But it's important that they come, not because we're saying we support you. I don't care what you believe in. I don't care if you're, to be honest, if you're Zionist and you say no to nuclear war, come. If you're pro-Hamas and you say no to nuclear war, come. If you're Democrat, Republican, Libertarian, Communist, Buddhist, I don't care. Because none of the differences we have matters if we're all dead. And we're all going to die. So the one thing I need is somebody who says, I want to live. I want to live. I choose life. Come, make your voice be heard, and maybe, just maybe, we can stop this thing.
Scott Ritter, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, Scott. And then also with that rally, if you could just, whenever there's graphics made for that or whatever, are you going to share that?
I came up with this idea today, just so you know. I got so, I was on with Judge Napolitano, and I just got so, excuse my language, pissed off, feeling so helpless, so frustrated. I went, screw it. We're having a rally, Judge. I want you to come. He went, I'm in. And so I've been promoting this thing. We've made a lot of progress. We will have it. The people that that know how to get the licenses and do all that are in charge. They've walked in the venue. It's going to happen. But I literally just made this up today. Tomorrow we begin the graphic presentation, and I just came up with the hashtag. I did that just a little while ago on another podcast. I said, screw it. I want say no to nuclear war. We got to make this thing trend. So,
all right.
But I will get you those graphics as soon as we have them.
Yeah. Let me know as soon as you have it, and I can, of course, promote it like on the show and social media, etc. But thank you so much, Scott.
Well, thank you for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that was Scott Ritter. Again, I told you, what is the theme? The world is on fire. So that's very important what Scott said there. Like, nuclear war is very real. And, Joe Biden is really pissing, I think, a lot of us off. The fact that Joe Biden is going down and he's trying to take everybody else down with him. That's the impression that I get. But shout out to Scott there. Thank you so much. We still have a couple more news stories we want to cover. Just a reminder, guys, I am not live tomorrow night, Friday. I'm not going to be live on Friday. I'm spending time with the family, so I'll be back again Tuesday night. That's why we have a longer show tonight. So just FYI. Let's go to some of the comments here in the chat. Thank you, Wanker, for the super chat. We didn't let South African apartheid exist or the Confederacy. Such will fall. No to all ethno states anywhere in our lifetimes. Inevitable. Thank you. Thank you, Fuzzy Ball. Sabby, please ask Scott if the U.S. will leave NATO. Oh, okay. I can ask him that privately and then let you guys know what he said when we have the next stream. That's a good question. I doubt they will, but that's an interesting one. I'm sorry, guys. My bangs got like super curly and it's humid and raining. And so Sabby not like, and I'm like a little oily right here. So anyway, my hair is doing weird things. Anyway, thank you, Wanker. There is no honor in empire. Thank you, Echo Pup. Arrest all war criminals, especially Lindsey Graham. Yeah, that guy is crazy. Thank you, David. Owning God equals owning truth. No one has a monopoly on truth. I went to a Catholic school and got into arguments about this. Human nature wants a hero. Interesting. D. Lawrence, Sabby, Cenk had TYT way before MSNBC. Okay, thank you for that. I thought it was the other way around, but thanks. Thanks, 007. I have great respect for Scott, a great American. Thank you, David. Scott is so right on. I still believe BlackRock was behind the first Trump assassination attempt, and it's over Ukraine. Too much money at stake. Interesting. Thanks, Timbo. Scott, I'm in, brother. Say no to nukes movement. Thank you, Raven. The Biden-Harris admin was an iron fist in Z. Elliott glove. C. Elliott glove. Thank you for that. Thank you. These bitches want Nikes. Any opinion on Cenk talking to Elon about defending the Pentagon on X? I think there is a realignment happening. I saw it. I'll have to wait and see if that actually happens. Sometimes people like tweet things and they tweet ideas or they brainstorm kind of on Twitter and they say these things are going to happen, but I like to wait and see if it actually comes to light before I start to, weigh in on it. So let's see if that actually happens. But it does kind of seem like there does seem to be some type of collaboration across the aisle. Thank you, Raven. The Biden admin was an iron fist in a velvet glove. Oh, thank you. That's what you meant. Thanks, Fuzzy. Joe Biden wants to take everyone to grave with him. That's what it feels like. It's ridiculous. And thank you, AMPM, for the super sticker. Thank you so much. We'll go to the comment on Rumble. Eric, thank you. Thank you, No Name Yet podcast. If you're at a slant, that means you're a Batman TV show villain. It's Sabby Sabs' lair. No, Batman. Bam. Biff. Pow. Sabby Sabs has Batman and Robin on a conveyor belt headed toward a radio saw. Oh man, that's the old school Batman show. Thank you, Be Free. Love your content. I've been following you for a while and I thought I would send some love. Thank you and welcome. All right, guys, if you haven't had a chance to do so, go ahead and smash the like button And we're going to move on to the next story here. This is pretty interesting, folks. So AOC had a controversial vote the other day. And I don't know if everybody knows about it, because if you're not on Twitter, you probably did not see this at all. And I don't think a lot of people are talking about it. You know, I call it the AOC sneaky vote. You know, she kind of try to sneak, her way with this. But we caught you. We caught you. Now, that vote is really interesting, considering that she is also commending Bernie Sanders for bringing that bill to the Senate floor, where he wanted to stop arms to Israel. Right. So, of course, most of the senators voted against that, but there were about 19 senators that voted for it, which I think is the most that we've seen so far. But she was commending Bernie Sanders for that. And Bernie gave us the warning about that bill earlier on. Listen to this. He told people it was coming.
A war which has killed more than 43,000 Palestinians and injured over 102,000, 60% of whom are women, children, or elderly people. All of this death and destruction is being supported by U.S. taxpayers, who have provided in recent times over $18 billion in military aid to Israel and delivered more than 50,000 tons of armaments and military equipment. In other words, as Americans, we are complicit. That is why I am now leading the effort in the Senate to block additional offensive arms sales to Israel through joint resolutions of disapproval.
So he did proceed with that the other day. Again, I told you how the votes worked there. One of the things I noticed that Bernie was doing with this is that he is not calling it a genocide. He's still not calling it a genocide. He's still referring to it as a war. Did you notice that? Did you notice that he's still repeating old death toll numbers, right? Like, so we still really believe it's 43,000 people at this point. So listen, AOC and Bernie Sanders, they're still trying to play this game where they'll speak up to do the right thing if they're pressured to do so, or they'll do it in such a way that still gives them room to be a part of the establishment, wing of the Democratic Party, and they won't be blackballed. That's what they do. So keep an eye on that. The fact that he's still not calling it a genocide. Now, there were 19 senators. I want to show you who they are so maybe one of these senators are yours. Thank you to the 19 senators who took a stand for human rights by voting to block the arms sales to Israel. So we have Schatz, Murphy, Ossoff, Warnock, Hirano, Durbin, Markey, Warren, Van Hollen, King, Smith, Shaheen, Sanders, Merkley, Welch were the co-sponsors. And then you have Hemley, Henrik, Lujan, and Kaine, Tim Kaine of all people, right? So these are the senators that voted in support of an arms embargo to Israel. Now, why is this important? AOC is playing a game. Let me show you what she just did. So she says, thank you, Senator Sanders, for leading this effort to block further offensive weapons to the Israeli government, and to every one of these 18 senators for affirming that the United States must uphold its own laws and commitments to international human rights. Now, if you did not look any further, you would have just seen this. The Bernie bill that was brought to the floor and voted on in the Senate, and AOC saying, thank you to Bernie Sanders. I agree. This is the right thing to do. And you would not have seen this because there was also another vote that took place, and that was in the House. Remember that bill, HR 1449, the anti-Semitism bill? That was voted on in the House. And how did AOC vote on that bill? Let's take a look. This is Resolution 1449. Let's check and see how this works. So first of all, I want to point out 193 Republicans voted yes, and 195 Democrats voted yes. For whatever reason, more Democrats voted in support of this bill instead of Republicans. Now, why is this bill problematic? What did I tell you before about this bill? This bill conflates anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism. This bill makes it difficult for you to be able to criticize Israel. So, knowing what I just told you, why in the hell did AOC, because they list the names, folks, okay? Why did AOC vote for this bill? Let's go. We can see her name here. There it is. I'll highlight it for you so you can see. AOC right there. She voted for it. Knowing what I just told you. That's right, Bill Bobby. She did vote for it. She did vote for it. So you see, on one hand, she's thanking Bernie Sanders for bringing that bill to the floor to stop sending arms to Israel and saying she agrees with that. But when it's time for her to vote, she's voting in such a way that could harm your speech. She voted for the anti-Semitism bill. This is why I continue to say, stop focusing on what they say and pay attention to what they do. So this little sneaky, underhanded thing, of course, she didn't announce this. She didn't say anything about this. And I'm going to show you who voted against it. There were only 3 Democrats that voted against this bill. All the Democrats that voted against it, their name is in italics. So you can see it here, right? Cori Bush voted against it. Ilhan Omar voted against it. Rashida Tlaib voted against it. So you have 3 members of the squad that voted against it, and AOC voted for it. So first things first, folks, stop calling them the squad. This is something new we're going to do on this show. We are going to stop referring to them as the squad. You know why? A squad sticks together. Cori Bush told us a while back, she said, no, they vote on their own. She said, yeah, we all came from Justice Democrats, but when we vote on our own. So let's remember that. Cori was right about that. At least she was honest. So stop calling them a squad. They're not a squad. They're not together. We're not even going to call them a team, because a team sticks together. A team works together as a team. What they are individuals that were all a part of the same organization called Justice Democrats, and they all happen to win, but they are not a squad and they are not a team. My coach always told me there is no I in team. So you know that she was wrong anytime you see Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar vote against it. But this isn't the first time. You see, she did it before. A lot of people just didn't notice this. It should be worth noting that AOC voted on a resolution that references the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which would label criticism of the Zionist colony as anti-Semitic. It is not surprising. She's done it before. In 2023, she voted for Res 888, for example, which stated, resolve that the House of Representatives reaffirms the state of Israel's right to exist, recognizes that denying Israel's right to exist is a form of anti-Semitism, rejects calls for Israel's destruction and the elimination of the only Jewish state, and condemns the Hamas-led terrorist attack on Israel. So this isn't the first time, ladies and gentlemen. Not the first time. Now, I do want to show you, to be fair, what did Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib say about this particular piece of legislation? This is why I said stop calling them a squad. Don't call them no squad. Don't call them no team. Don't even do that. Shout out to Lindsay Bellant for sharing this. Rashida Tlaib. I strongly oppose anti-Semitism and have spent my career working against all forms of hate. I oppose this resolution because It embraces the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, which dangerously conflates criticism of the state of Israel with anti-Semitism. I share the concerns of groups like Jewish Voices for Peace, Ben the Ark, B'Tselem, Amnesty International, and the ACLU that the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism will be used to stifle dissent and chill free speech, especially Palestinian human rights advocacy. The resolution also does not recognize that the fight against anti-Semitism is connected to our fight against Islamophobia, racism, white nationalism, and all other forms of hate. That's Rashida Tlaib. Ilhan Omar's statement, Cori Bush's statement. I condemn anti-Semitism and all forms of hatred and bigotry, period. Res 1449 relies on the flawed IHRA definition, conflating valid criticism of the Israeli government with anti-Semitism. Standing against hate must never come at the cost of silencing valid, necessary critiques. Ilhan Omar, I voted against it because the bill endorses the harmful definition of the IHRA that dangerously conflates legitimate criticism of Israel to anti-Semitism and further harms our ability to address anti-Semitism. While I condemn anti-Semitism unequivocally, this resolution does nothing to combat anti-Semitism. I will continue to stand against any attempt to silence genuine concerns of the Israeli government as anti-Semitism. So, ladies and gentlemen, as I told you before, AOC is playing a game, and what she says isn't always what she does. So pay attention to that. You know what else was really strange? You know who else voted for that bill? Jamal Bowman. Jamal Bowman, who just had the interview with Ronnie Yakalik where he was criticizing APAC and the pressure that they put on Congress members. Jamal Bowman did not win his reelection. He will not be in Congress next year. So why did Jamal Bowman vote for it? They can't be trusted. They cannot be trusted. Now you're asking about that definition. I want you to hear this broken down bit here from Al Jazeera, where they talk about how they were changing the definition.
Core of this hysteria, at the core of this manufacturing of anti-Semitism on campuses, is who is defining anti-Semitism and how it's being defined. In 2005, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance published a working definition of anti-Semitism. And while the definition itself doesn't mention Israel, among the 11 examples of anti-Semitism it does give, 7 include Israel. The ERA definition of anti-Semitism, which is vague, conflates Israel and its actions with Jewish people, a conflation that's been criticized as not only dangerous for the safety of Jews, but also as suppressing any and all criticism of Israel. Compare this definition to the one set out in the Jerusalem Declaration in 2021. While it also received criticism for erasing the Palestinian experience, the Jerusalem Declaration not only provides a clear, concise definition, but it also explicitly states that anti-Zionism and support for Palestinian freedom between the river and the sea are not anti-Semitic. In other words, there's not just one definition out there for anti-Semitism. But it's the ERA definition that is used by pro-Israel advocacy groups, the State Department, and this year, in the midst of anti-genocide protests across the United States, the House adopted the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, which mandates that the Department of Education adopt the ERA definition. And the way this really, by the way, shows up in media coverage and national discourse on anti-Semitism on campuses is through the language of categorization, specifically the delineation made between Jewish students and pro-Palestinian students. It's a very cynical use of language. First, it makes the default position of Jewish students, and thus all Jews, to be pro-Israel and pro-genocide. We see Jewish identity explicitly weaponized in service of, again, a genocide overseen by a country that claims to represent all Jews. But this is, of course, demonstrably false, especially.
And then she gets into obviously the campus protest and all that stuff. But I wanted you to hear about how they're changing that definition. And that is really important. You don't see this happen for any other group. And I have to say this repeatedly, guys. I have never seen Congress move this quickly to help any other group in this country. And people need to start calling that out. Now, shout out to Blakely, because Blakely did warn people a couple of months ago that that bill was making its way around and that it was coming. She says AOC is full of it. Listen to this.
Do you guys remember a few months ago at the DNC when they trotted out AOC to talk about how Kamala Harris and Joe Biden were working tirelessly for a ceasefire? Okay, well, we knew that that was bullshit then, but tell me why she came out today and on the one hand, praised Bernie Sanders, trying to bring up a bill that would stop the sale of offensive weapons to the Israeli regime, which, real quick detour on that, it's amazing how all the people in the Zionists that are like, we care so much about the safety of Jewish people, become whole David Duke anti-Semites the second that Bernie Sanders doesn't act how they want him to. Like, literally. Like, you should go on Twitter and look at what the Zionists are saying about Bernie Sanders. Because he's Jewish, because he brought up this bill, now all the Zionists are attacking him in like the most psychotic ways. It really kind of takes the mask off the whole thing, you know, really shows us what they really actually care about, and it's not anti-Semitism. And Joe Biden, who is a Zionist lunatic, and his administration are literally lobbying for it to fail. Biden, who's not really there, but his administration, and yes, that includes Kamala Harris, are going to the Hill to lobby for the senators to vote against stopping arms shipments to the Israeli regime. So just on his way out the door, he's just reminding us how awful he is. So I don't want to hear any, but Joe Biden, he's such a good man. The administration was working tirelessly for a ceasefire. No, they're monsters. Even in the weak-ass attempt that the Senate Democrats made, the Biden administration and the White House could not help but go down there and try to lobby against it, because that's how committed they are to this genocide. And then I also heard that Chuck Schumer was lobbying against it, and so was APAC, of course. Chuck Schumer is trash, okay? The fact that Chuck Schumer keeps getting reelected, and the fact that he is such a loser, but he keeps getting to be in charge of the Senate. Like, you guys just like being losers. Chuck Schumer is a loser, and yet you keep making him the leader. And he's the one pushing for this. He's one of the ones lobbying against this. He's also the one that is planning on bringing up the so-called Stop Anti-Semitism bill, which you'll remember from a couple months ago I talked about. It is a full frontal assault on the First Amendment. And he's trying he doesn't want to just bring it up by itself because he's a coward. He wants to attach it to a must-pass bill that's going to pass with the rest of the defense bill that passes every year. Defense bill that
So you guys hear this? He's going to try to mix this in with another bill that must pass. This is what they do. This is why they don't want single issue bills.
Passes every year. It's just a money laundering operation, okay? To the military industrial complex. But that's what his sneaky ass is doing, okay? So I don't know if you're still following me at this point, but today they brought up another House resolution, the same one they had brought up a few months ago, repassing it in the House, and now they want to bring it to the Senate. That's the one that Chuck Schumer wants to actually add to the bill. And only 28 people voted against it. 28. That's so embarrassing. Remember what I always tell you. When something is bipartisan like that, it's always to screw you. Because whenever it is something that would actually help a regular person, it's all, listen, guys, we're just really polarized. You know, Republicans and Democrats and the parliamentarian and Joe Manchin and the filibuster. But then when it comes to things that are for the ruling class or for the Israeli regime, all of a sudden, bipartisanship rules the day. You know, kumbaya, hand in hand, everybody's on the same page, including AOC, who voted for this today. So as on one hand, she is praising Bernie Sanders, she's voting for that trash ass Stop Anti-Semitism bill, which is nothing more than an attack on Americans' free speech. It is an attempt to conflate anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism and to conflate any criticism of the Israeli regime with anti-Semitism. This is some of the language. So understand this. If you're an American, you can criticize your own government, but not theirs. If you can't criticize a foreign government, you don't live in a free country. And don't let the right wing off the hook with this one either, because all these so-called free speech warriors haven't said shit.
And there it is. And that's why I wanted you guys to see that, because that is the brutal reality. So AOC, like I told you, she's playing a game. She's still trying to appeal to both sides. So it's like, let me go ahead and thank Bernie Sanders why I'm voting for this bill that is doing the opposite of what I'm trying to do. She's trying to be on both sides because she's probably like, well, I don't want them to come after my seat like they came after Cori Bush or whatever. And people wonder why some people call her AOCIA. People wonder why. It's a game that she is playing with people. I really do hope that someone will run against AOC and like really just like she's got to go. Somebody needs to run against her because she's developed a hell of an ego. She's probably one of the biggest political con artists in Congress. And she still has people believing that she is grassroots and she's a dim socialist and all this kind of stuff because she still gets the grassroots support, but she's still operating with the machine. She's still moving with the machine. She's still moving with the establishment. It's like, you can't sit up there and continue to say that you're for the people and you're for the grassroots and you're for, the Palestinians, and you're voting in a way that goes against that. So you don't hear her talking about the way that she voted. Pay attention to that. Some of us called it out for quite some time. Eric, we can go to part 2 of Type VNC. Pay attention, folks. Pay attention. What's up, Jennifer? You are by far my fave person I've seen so far. Love you. Oh, thank you. And welcome. What's up, Naya? Thank you. Russia is building nuclear resistant bomb shelters. Yeah, Russia's going to be okay. Like it's scary times, you guys. Thank you, Kenman. Bernie is the Bill Cosby of politics, a hypocrite. Thank you, Raven. We are reliving World War II history all over again. Thanks, David. No I in squad, but there is an I in Israel. This is true. Thanks, Kevin. Instead of squad, they should be called the squabs. Thank you, Wanker. Please have on Rabbi Yaakov Shapiro on how Zionism is not Judaism. Okay, I can add him to the list of people to bring on. Thank you, Raven. We are looking more like Germans of World War II. Yeah, it's pathetic. And thank you, Flower Bro. Claudia should run for her seat. Is Claudia in her district? I'll have to check and see if Claudia is in AOC's district. I know she's in New York. I just don't know if she's in her district. But yeah, something has to change there. Okay. All right, guys, smash that like button if you haven't had a chance to do so. Thank you. And we're moving on to our next story. Oh, yeah. We're doing pretty good on time. I thought we would be really late, but we're doing pretty good on time. This story is a must. Stop what you're doing because I'm about to ruin. This story right here. Shout out to Roger Meadows for sending this video to me because I have been trying to tell people for the longest time. I have a video on my channel where it's Cory Booker and it says exposed on the thumbnail. I have been warning people about Black politicians working, hand in hand with APAC, with Israel, while choosing to prioritize Israel and APAC and not prioritize the Black community. I have been trying to get people to pay attention, and specifically to the Congressional Black Caucus. The Congressional Black Caucus is not helping the Black community. The Congressional Black Caucus has been helping Israel. They've been helping APAC. They will help anybody but us, but they are bought and paid for by APAC. So once you understand this, and once you see this video, you will understand why nothing is getting done for the Black community. They're not passing any bills for the Black community. That so-called reparations bill that people keep asking Jim Clyburn about, which actually isn't real reparations, there is a reason why they are not moving on these pieces of legislation. They don't intend to. They exist there in Congress only for symbolic reasons and for you to think that you have representation when you do not. Friend of the show, Roger Meadows, sent this to me. This was on Phil Scott's show. I don't know if you guys follow Phil Scott. If not, you should check him out. We don't agree on everything, but we agree on enough. I want you to hear what APAC says here about the black politicians that they not only recruit, but they also seek out. I warned you, they were looking for people not just in college, but also when they are in high school. They start early. Listen to what they say.
So I think you know that APAC is both a grassroots organization.
For us, why?
I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why this video, why I did that. Here we go.
And also a leadership empowerment organization. So a particular concern to us are not African Americans, but those African Americans.
Let me go back.
Let's go down and cue this up real quick. Let me go find the clip. Okay, all right. So let's go ahead and cue this up. Listen closely.
So I think you know that APAC is both a grassroots organization and also a leadership empowerment organization. So a particular concern to us are not African Americans, but those African Americans that will be part of the Congressional Black Caucus.
Pause. So here is APAC letting you know that they're not really interested in what Black people need. They're not interested in the Black community. They're not interested in these African Americans. But what they're interested in is recruiting Black Americans that will be a part of the Congressional Black Caucus. Does anyone not find that to be problematic? They're not thinking about your needs. They ain't thinking about no damn reparations. They're not thinking about what the Black community needs. They're just thinking about recruiting Black people to be a part of the Congressional Black Caucus. Let's continue.
Those African Americans that will be governors, those African Americans that will be part of the cabinet of successive administrations. And we have been rather successful in identifying young, emerging political leaders, sometimes when they're in their teens, sometimes when they're on college campuses, sometimes when they're just getting into state politics, and sometimes when they first emerge as congressional candidates. APAC built a relationship with Barack Obama before he was a president, before he was a presidential candidate, before he was a U.S. senator. We built a relationship with him before he was in the Illinois State House.
Pause. Everybody pay attention to what they just said. They built a relationship with Barack Obama before he was even in the Illinois State House. These people were selected. They win a majority of their races. The candidates that have the backing and support of APAC are more likely to win. APAC has a video they've created. It's on social media where they're talking about, they're bragging about how they win most of their races. When I tell you these people were selected, they were selected. When I told you that they recruit, certain people recruited, they're recruited. You think they're there for you. They're not. They are purposely going out for, let's get the Black people. So Black American voters will come out and vote for them because they look like them, even though we're going to make sure they don't do anything for them. These people are puppets. That's Obama. That's Cory Booker. That's Hakeem Jeffries. All of these people, they're puppets. Jim Clyburn is a puppet. He has convinced people that all he needs to do for you is host a fish fry. That when it comes to legislation, he don't really got to push nothing for the Black community because that's not what he's there for anyway. He's not there to serve you. He's just there to make you think you have representation. He can say, I look like you. And as long as you think I look like you and that's enough, I ain't really got to do nothing for you. Puppets. Now you know. What did I tell you about Barack Obama? Now you hear it from their mouth. He was chosen. He was selected. They got him before he was in the State House. Think about that.
The relationship we built with Sarah Palin was before she was mayor. The groups that we are most excited about bringing to Israel for the first time would be the national, state, and local leaders of the College Republican National Committee and the College Democrats of America. And the fact that we bring them to Israel together, lock them in a bus, don't let them come down from the top of Masada until they understand the importance of working together, may be one of our only hedges against the breakdown of bipartisanship that we're witnessing today.
Did you hear him say lock them in a bus?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to hear the whole thing what the gentleman had to say from APAC. And I'm going to play this again, not the whole thing, but it's just a part that one part I'm also concerned about, or what we need to listen to. So let's go ahead and play it again and just listen very closely. I'm going to stop it at certain points.
So I think you know that APAC is both a grassroots organization and also a leadership empowerment organization. So a particular concern to us are not African Americans.
Okay. So he said, listen, our concern isn't the black community and what they got going on. He clearly said that. They're not worried about us whatsoever. I want to make sure we putting that out there. They're not worried about us as a group. But as you continue to hear, what they are concerned about is making sure they can spot and cherry pick those among us that's going to be in any kind of political leadership. Why is that? Why get to them young? Why get to them before they actually get really developed politically? The thing is they have to try to, the best thing they all do, it's not just APAC, it's all of them. They have to separate you from your people.
Yep.
Because if you can't take a politician that come from the grassroots and say, nah, bro, I'm fighting for my community. The Democrat Party would never put money behind anybody who's going to fight for black people.
Does everybody hear that? These are lessons to take home with you. Write this down. This is a little bit of homework. This is why you don't see a lot of the black activists running for office. This is why. They will never let you get through. They'll never let you. Who's the young woman in Congress, the young black woman that is on everybody's show, and she called MTG the bleach blonde baby or whatever? Did she call her like bleach blonde? Was it Jasmine Crockett or whatever? Okay. Where you think she came from? You think they don't have a hold of her too? These people didn't just appear out of nowhere. I told you, Hakeem Jeffries was losing to Charles Barron. He was losing to Charles Barron, a Black Panther. Next thing you know, Charles Barron gets the smear thrown towards him. Everybody, the same smear you saw with Jill Stein. David Duke endorses Charles Barron. So like I said before, David Duke is an op. Next thing you know, Hakeem Jeffries shoots through the polls. And that's how Hakeem Jeffries got the seat that he's sitting in right now. Hakeem Jeffries takes a lot of money from APAC. So again, he didn't get there on his own. Most of their candidates win. I want you to second guess all these people, all these candidates that are part of the Congressional Black Caucus. I want you to second guess all of them. And you can look up their funding on Open Secrets.
The rule in politics for black politicians You can't punish white people, and you can't help black people. That is the two rules for black politicians. Period. Definitely you can't help black people. You better not even think about helping black people. You can help immigrants, migrants that just came here yesterday. You can do something for LGBT. You can do something for anybody you want to. And I'm gonna even say you can't even do a whole lot for black immigrants either. Maybe you can give them a little bit, but you better not be really giving them resources like the Venezuelans been getting. Look, if you really look at those shelters, look at who really getting all those resources. It's not the African immigrants or the Caribbean immigrants. It's the ones from Venezuela and El Salvador and all of them. Y'all really pay attention to that. It's not the black immigrants getting all those resources from the Democrats. But let me go ahead and continue this.
But those African Americans that will be part of the Congressional Black Caucus, those African Americans that will be governors, those African Americans that will be part of the cabinet of successive administrations. And we have been rather successful in identifying young, emerging political leaders, sometimes when they're in their teens.
Sometimes when they're in their teens. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Most of these people did not get there by accident. They didn't just wake up one day and say, hey, I think I might want to run for office. They've been recruited. Most of them have been recruited. They are able to identify them when they're teenagers. So they're going after, if you're parents, they're going after your kids. They're going after them when they're identifying them when they're in high school.
Sometimes when they're on college campuses.
All right. So he talked about your Congressional Black Caucus, how they want to know who's going to be in the Congressional Black Caucus, and definitely they want to focus on the people that's still there right now. Okay? That's their focus. That's who they want to work on. Now, we know the Congressional Black Caucus is an entity that has not done a freaking thing, and not to say another word, for Black America. They haven't done a thing. They have not advocated for a bill for Black Americans. They haven't said, hey, we're not voting on a single bill in Congress unless you put up this anti-Black hate crime bill. They never said we're going to protest any other bill you have if you don't do something about reparations. They won't even come out as a group talking about reparations. They won't say a word about reparations at all.
Nope.
They are the most do-nothing group that we see. But we'll see the Congressional Black Caucus talking about what APAC want them to talk about. We'll see the Congressional Black Caucus talking about immigrants. You're going to see the Congressional Black Caucus speaking against Trump and mass deportations. Watch. Because they were doing that the last time when Trump was in office. Oh, that's wrong. He deporting all these people. Oh, it's wrong. But they don't say nothing about Black people. Prime example. Nope. Look at how Sonia Massey was killed. Where's the Congressional Black Caucus? Where were they at?
Silent.
Every time something happens to a Black person, they're quiet. They don't say anything. They got this big group of do-nothing Black politicians who are only there to keep the status quo. What's the status quo? Keeping Black people at the bottom and the folks at the top.
Everybody write that down and take that with you. The reason why the Clyburns, the Hakeem Jeffries, those that are part of the Congressional Black Caucus, the Cory Bookers, the reason why they got where they are is part of it because APAC already sought them out, but also because they maintain the status quo. This is important, guys. This is why I tell you, liberals protect the status quo. Liberals want a little bit of reform, but they want the system to not be destroyed. They don't want you to burn down the house. They don't want, and some of this will tell you this too, as much as they say we need criminal justice reform, many of them don't even really want police full accountability. These are the kind of things that are said in private. So their idea of criminal justice reform was let's give them body cams, but many of them ain't really trying to rock the boat. They're not trying to dismantle the system. They want the system to remain the same, but they want a couple of reforms. So they don't want to tear something down and build something new. This is why someone like a Fred Hampton, this is why someone like a Malcolm X wouldn't have been able to make it into Congress. Because Fred Hampton told you this system weren't shit. And he made it very clear to you that the government was not going to take care of the people. Let's take care of ourselves. We're going to do this through mutual aid. We're going to build up our own communities. Malcolm X knew. And they were killed. Both of them were killed. So Jim Clyburn, Hakeem Jeffries, as much as they pretend that they care about what's happening to the Black community, at the end of the day, you have to understand they're a part of it all. That's why you rarely hear them speak up. Who are they? This is who they are. So you can see for yourself. Don't run and hide from Sabby. Show them your face. These are the members of the Congressional Black Caucus. We ain't got to go through everybody's name, but we're going to point out a few. And if you live in their district, you let me know what they did for you. Maxine Waters. Maxine Waters was on camera about a year or two ago telling people to go home. She told homeless people to go home when they showed up to get vouchers. James Clyburn, Mr. Fish Fry, who yelled at Black activists when they asked him about the reparations bill. Get out of my face. What you talking about? These are some of these people you probably don't even know. Bobby, I don't even know who the hell you are. But some of the ones that you do know, Barbara Lee, she can be good on some issues, but a lot of times in the end, she end up going with the status quo too. You know, she show up every now and then and take a stand and then sit right back down. That's Barbara Lee. We'll continue to go down the list. Look at all the people. Hakeem Jeffries, the greatest bougie ass kissing token of them all. Hakeem Jeffries knows better. Hakeem Jeffries knows about radicalism. He knows that the Black community is obviously underserved and needs a lot of things, but you rarely hear Hakeem Jeffries talk about it. Every time I see Hakeem Jeffries in an interview, how often do you hear him talking about, here's what we can do to help the Black community? How often? And I'm not talking about that little sit down that he had with Jamal Bowman about let's make hip hop a holiday. Hakeem Jeffries is there to virtue signal too. Don't get it twisted. Don't think that just because he has the same complexion that he's there fighting for the Black community. He's not. Hip hop day. Get out of here. You got Frederica S. Wilson. She's another one that has greatly taken advantage of Black people. And some of you are wondering, how do they continue to win? You know how they win? Because most Black people don't vote. You know how they win? White liberals. So I'm going to need for you to tell the white liberals, if you live in their districts, the white liberals in those districts, I'm going to need for you guys to let them know, why are you supporting these people when they are not helping the Black community? White people, I'm going to say something to you too. If you're white and you live in their district and you've been supporting them, stop supporting them. Oh, well, what is happening here? That's how they get in. It's the same thing with Jim Clyburn. Jim Clyburn ain't winning because he doing a great job. Black people ain't rushing out to vote for him. Marcel Dixon told you so. He been on this show multiple times. And Marcel Dixon let you know that it's white liberals who are coming out to support Jim Clyburn. So we got to talk to everybody. We can't just talk to other Black people. We got to talk to our white comrades as well and tell them they are not helping the Black community. Let's go on. Here's Cory Booker, the biggest sellout of them all, takes a lot of money from APAC. Him and Hakeem Jeffries take a lot. Cory Booker, Mr. I went to Stanford. I played. Now, Cory Booker will be the first one to let you know how his parents were discriminated against when they were trying to buy a house in New Jersey because of the color of their skin. He's told that story so many times. But how often is Cory Booker out there pushing legislation to help the Black community? Do not come back to me and say, well, he moved to Newark to live in the projects to help the people there. That was before he got into Congress, God damn it. Once he got into Congress, it was done. And I don't really care too much for people, cosplaying. Like, I don't really like people cosplaying poor, Like, Cory Booker was not poor. He grew up in a nice suburb in New Jersey. He went to Stanford. And then he decided, let me go move in the projects in Newark to show the people I can be one of them so that I can win. That's when he was local politicians. And they'll know that I'm one of them. I don't like cosplay poor. I don't like it, okay? Stop it. Rich people, wealthy people, stop moving to poor neighborhoods and pretending that you're poor. You move in and you jack up the damn price anyway. Get out of here. Stop cosplaying poor. So there's that. Cory Booker. Who else we got here? Stacey Plaskett, Miss Friend with Jeffrey Epstein Plaskett. She also a part of the Congressional Black Caucus. What is she doing? What is she doing? What is she doing? The woman who took money from Epstein? Who are the people that are supposed to be representing the Black? Ayanna Pressley, don't even get me started. Ayanna Pressley, you might be good on some issues sometime, but really, I told you she was the one that was never anywhere near as left as the other Justice Democrats. You just like the Black Elizabeth Warren to me. And I can say that because I lived in her district. So it just is. I just so many things to say. Ilhan Omar. A lot of the Somali community don't like Ilhan. So what this look, Jamal Bowman, Cori Bush used to do a lot for her community, but part of the reason she lost her re-election was because of APAC. The other part of the reason was the people in the community said they stopped seeing her come around. So I can't. Richie Torres, we don't know who you are. You claim to be progressive. You fight more for Israel than you do for the poor people in the Bronx in your district. You don't give a damn about those people. The Bronx is the poorest borough in New York City. And I'll never hear Richie Torres talking about the Bronx. Every time I see this man's face, he on TV talking about what we can do for Israel. So APAC bought these people. So if you wonder why they're not helping you, now you know. They are willing to do what they can. And Jamal Green puts this so well. Jamal Green is trying to let you know the old guard has got to go. Clyburn needs to retire. Like a lot of these people, Clyburn, Barbara Lee, Frederica, all these people need to retire. Because you are not helping the Black community. And I'm not a politician, but I help. I help through mutual aid. You're a politician. These guys have more followers on Twitter than I do. They have a bigger platform than I do. How come you never around? But when it's time for you to go up there and speak for Israel, you front and center. Front and center. Jamal Green puts it so well.
I'm sorry, some of y'all not gonna like this video, but I gotta tell y'all the truth. The reason why Black people will continue suffering in this country is because we allow Black gatekeepers to act like they represent us and they don't move forward an agenda that actually represents us. You gotta understand that these folks that they paying, Oprah, Al Sharpton, Roland Martin, Jesse Jackson, they do not represent the communities of today and they must move aside. We can step back, we can respect their work, we can pay homage, we can do all that. But there's no reason why Black folks, while we're in a state of emergency, we have the lowest amount of wealth in this country, the lowest amount of homeowners in this country, the most illiterate children on the data sheet, the dying at number one in mostly all of the chronic diseases in this country. We are at war, and we don't have time to keep on allowing these black gatekeepers who won't pass the torch, the black gatekeepers who act like they represent us and don't move forward a real agenda for us because they don't even know what we need. They don't come in our communities. They don't work in our communities. We need real people that are on the ground that actually get the support. Support the young business owners, the young activists, the young politicians, the young media people who actually can connect with the people of today. If we don't pass the damn torch and get rid of these old guard gatekeepers, and I'm not saying old to be disrespectful, I'm just letting you know that their time has come to an end and we must have change.
I agree with Jamal so well. They are holding a lot of people back. But again, they're there by design. I would like to know what Maxine Waters has done for people in her district all this time that she's been in Congress, especially since she told homeless people to go home. Pay attention to what is happening. Pollster Frank Luntz has done a number of interviews post-election. And on multiple interviews, he's asked, what do you think should be the next best strategy? And I noticed something that Frank Luntz has said. He said, I think the Democratic Party should go with someone like Cory Booker. Cory Booker, he even said he thinks Cory Booker can beat Donald Trump. Cory Booker can't beat Donald Trump. I listened to Cory Booker's speech in New Hampshire in 2020 when he was running through the Democrat primary back then. Cory Booker was so damn fake. 2, I thought his eyes was going to jump out of his head. 3, there was an older gentleman in the audience who said, you sound just like Barack Obama. You're seeing some of the same things that Barack Obama said when he came here and he stood in front of us too. In other words, the man was trying to let him know he was fake. Fake it and fake. There's nothing that comes out of Cory Booker's mouth that I trust. I don't trust his eyes either. So there's that. Why would Frank Luntz say it should be Cory Booker? He should be the leader of the party. He can beat Trump. Cory Booker can't beat Trump. But why would he pick Cory Booker? Why would he name him? Because Cory Booker is an APAC puppet. And according to Max Blumenthal, so is Frank Luntz. Pay attention to who is recommended. And then look them up on Open Secrets and see if they're taking money from APAC. The Congressional Black Caucus is a joke. They don't do anything for us. And some of these, like Jamal said, some of these old tired heads need to retire and they need to step aside and they need to let younger people and younger energy that are not bought and that are part of the grassroots take the lead. Oh, when we clip this one, we're going to try to make sure that we get this out to as many people as possible because you need to know who is answering to APAC instead of answering to the community. Let's go to some of the comments here. Thank you for the super sticker. Pretty ugly things. Interesting name there. Lions Den said, I've been saying this for over 20 years now. I can rest because Black Americans are waking up to this. So glad. Thank you, Unemployed Scholar. Charles Barron has prevented Black community from being gentrified in New York. Roger says, Sabby, APAC got to Cory before he became senator. When he ran against Mayor Sharp James, he said, who are you? You aren't from here. You aren't even from New Jersey. Who is backing you? I remember that. I'm telling you, look into it, guys. Look into it. Okay, quick time for announcement, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking of giving back to the community, I am doing another mutual aid event. So RBN Boston chapter, this is for December. We are doing the Winter Wonderland gift donation. We are donating gifts to 50 students. I want to put this here. Boston Mutual Aid chapter is raising money to donate gifts to 50 children in need. We will also serve a catered lunch for their families. Please help donate what you can. So yes, this is going to be December 15th at the Bruce C. Bowling Building in Roxbury. So we had the last event there as well. 2300 Washington Street. Looking forward to that. Again, Sunday, December 15th. That'll be at 12 p.m. Gift donation. It is invite only, so you can't attend the event unless you were invited. Because we had to get a list of the students and the families that were in need, their age and their gender, so we know what gifts to get for them. Like if you want to come and help and volunteer, you can, but the gifts are for the kids that are in need. So yeah, I'm looking forward to hosting that event. If you want to donate, if you can, please go ahead and you can do that through Spot Fund. And Eric, you can put the link to that in the chat. I just launched the campaign today. Actually, I'll put it in the chat right here. There we go. And I can share it later on the show. So looking really forward to that, ladies and gentlemen, and excited about that. That should be a good one. That'll be our last mutual aid event for the year. So we'll end with the bang. Yeah. All right. And we also have a mutual aid request here from Roger Meadows, friend of the show. I don't know if you guys, most of you are familiar with Roger, right? Yeah. So Roger Meadows is having a job situation, guys. So I do want to make sure I share this as well. It's happened to, many of us. It's happened to me before too. So Roger is in between jobs right now. He lives in New York and he's starting a new job, but he just needs some help getting through that time in between. So if you can help with Roger's the one that helps me with the ballot measures that I covered. If you can, please donate to Roger. I think I put what did I do? I put Venmo. Yeah. His Venmo is at Roger-Meadows, Cash App, $RMoney16, or you can do PayPal, which is at Roger Meadows 81. So thank you guys so much. Again, like I said, guys, sometimes it happens. I've been there, so I am very familiar. Okay. And now we're going to get to our final story. I figure we could end on a fun note. Yeah. The world is on fire, ladies and gentlemen, and apparently so is Piers Morgan's crazy ass panel. I think you guys have been waiting for this one. Cenk had a debate with Professor Alan Lichtman, the guy who is, I guess, the father of the 13 keys, the guy who has predicted every presidential election, I think since the mid 80s until 2024. There were a number of us that were right about our prediction that Donald Trump would win 312, but Alan Lichtman was not right about his. He predicted that Kamala Harris would win this election, and now it seems like people are not letting him live it down. We're going to bring in this clip here. Oh my God. Get ready to laugh, ladies and gentlemen. This is hilarious. Piers Morgan starts off the lineup here, and he wants to ask Alan what went wrong. What went wrong?
I think that's right.
Latino men suddenly went towards Trump.
I don't know. I went on Fox News 10 days before with Brian Kilby and said, I think he's going to win big. But actually, most people thought we'd be incredibly tight and it could go either way and so on. But it wasn't that at all. Why do you think Trump is so difficult to poll? Which is clearly the conclusion I would draw from this.
Well, I am forthrightly willing to admit I missed this election. I still think I actually had 10 out of 10 before. I think I was right about 2000, but we're not here to litigate that. I still think it's a pretty good record. Now, I think two things are operating here. Number one, I was incredibly critical at the time of the spineless, cowardly Democrats openly and viciously trashing their elected president and their elected nominee right out there in the open. I have never seen that before, and I've studied American politics since the founding, and that tainted any nominee. And they're now taking no responsibility for that. They're blaming everybody else. Until they look in the mirror, the Democratic Party is going to be in trouble. Second,
pause. I just want to remind everyone that Alan Lichtman has had multiple opportunities to change his prediction. And every time he was interviewed after he made his prediction, he said, I will not change my prediction. I don't change it. Whether the polls change or whatever, I'm not going to change my prediction. So Just keep that in mind when you hear him saying the things that happened.
Why did my keys miss? Because my keys are based upon the proposition that a pragmatic, rational electorate decides whether or not the White House party is governed well enough to get 4 more years. That was exploded this time by a new wave of disinformation that we've never seen before. In addition to the usual sources of disinformation, we had a huge change this time. A 300 billionaire, a guy who's richer than most countries of the world, who controls X, spreading vast disinformation. According to reports, billions upon billions of viewers saw his disinformation.
I just want to add here again, the majority of the voters that are over the age of 65, and those are the ones who typically are reliable voters, if we're looking at the data, are not on Twitter. So there's that.
People have a completely distorted view of the economy.
What was the disinformation?
Inflation is going up.
Let me pin you down on that, though. You say Elon Musk was spreading disinformation. Like what?
Yes. He is spreading vast disinformation that's sunk in. Even people who think their own financial situation is pretty good think inflation is going up when it's been cut by 75%, that unemployment
but it's still
is
inflation.
a near high when
It's
it's
still inflation,
near
Professor.
a low.
On that point, see, that's interesting. You would say that's disinformation, but the point is that inflation is still not zero. Therefore, prices are still going up. Therefore, people...
The only way you get inflation to zero is with a recession.
Yeah, but here's my point.
Obviously.
Here's my point. Yeah, but here's my point. Democrats kept telling the American people rather arrogantly, I thought, the economy is in really good shape. Meanwhile, inflation still exists. In other words, prices have continued to go up and up and up, albeit not at the same rate they were going up. But if it wasn't zero, and it wasn't, it was like 2.5% or whatever by the end, that is still inflation. So it's not disinformation to say
the only
Americans
way
are still suffering.
Let me pause here for a second. First of all, I'm not even, let's say just put inflation aside. People can tell the difference between the grocery prices. Raise your hand if you do the grocery shopping in your house. So I do the grocery shopping. So I know how much I'm able to get and how much that's usually going to cost. At one point, I remember I could spend $200 and that would get us enough food for the month. For the month. Next thing I know, and I buy the same stuff for the most part. Next thing I know, 200 went to like 300 and 350. I mean, it's, like people, he thinks people don't notice that the price of steak costs more. That like chicken meat, especially like chicken breasts cost more. He think people don't notice that. Does Alan Lichtman look at prices? Or is he able to just go to the grocery store and just buy stuff and not pay attention? Maybe he's not affected, right? So he thinks people don't notice these things. For those of us that do the grocery shopping, we know how much we could usually get for like 100, 150, 200. We know. And I go to the cheap grocery store. So what it's disinformation that people aren't able to afford the groceries like they could.
Zero is a recession, is deflation. That's ridiculous. Inflation has been cut by 80%, but it's not just inflation that people are wrong about.
But do you accept
It's
inflation
every
means prices are
aspect
still
of the
going
economy.
up? Do you accept prices were still going up?
Of course.
Right, so
They
that's the point.
always do, unless
But
you have a recession.
That's not disinformation,
That's ridiculous.
then, is it? By Elon Musk,
And it's
that isn't
disinformation about every other aspect of the economy as well. Disinformation about undocumented immigrants.
Pause. This is a good point here, William Charles. My electric bill doubled too. That's another thing that people have noticed. Depending on where you live, your electric bill may have also been increasing.
It's like they're the bloodthirsty killers. They are the most law-abiding segment of our society. According to numerous studies, including by the Libertarian Cato Institute, they commit crimes, including violent crimes, less than half of that of Native Americans. And they don't drain our economy. They are the mainstay of the agricultural, construction, personal service, hospitality industries.
Okay, I don't think the majority of people that voted for Donald Trump voted for him because of, the stuff about people eating cats and dogs. I don't think the majority of people voted for them because of that. When it comes to the immigration issue, I think the majority of people that voted based on that particular policy is because of the border. I don't think most people that voted for Trump said, I'm going to go vote for him because they're telling people that Haitians are eating cats and dogs and stuff. I do not think so, man. I don't think so.
Studies show you will drive the economy into a recession if you go through large-scale deportation of immigrants, and you will sweep huge numbers of U.S. citizens because all the databases used to identify undocumented immigrants are fundamentally flawed. You can't have a pragmatic electorate under these conditions, and the mainstream media is utterly feeble. It spends 20 times more time on meaningless polls within the margin of error than it does telling truth to power and indicating the consequences of this election.
But I'm sorry, but some of the polls that I showed on this show ended up being correct, right? RCP was very close. Atlas was very close. Emerson got it wrong. Like I showed you left polls and right-wing polls, but some of the polls I showed you got it right. So it just,
it's being taken over by billionaires.
Okay, I'm going to come to Cenk. I mean, Cenk, the biggest deporter in American presidential history was Barack Obama, who deported over 3 million people. This idea that Trump is going to become some outlier in terms of mass deportation. The great mass deporter was actually a Democrat president, Obama, by a long way, by the way. So this idea of like disinformation, I think some of it was disinformation, but it's, I think the idea that this election was only won through right-wing disinformation, I'm afraid, I view that as a total delusion by the Democrats. Again.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I'm sorry, but I totally disagree with Juan and Professor Lichtman. Don't blame the voters. I think, look, we could get into this discussion, but Juan, I think you're blaming the voters. I think that's a terrible idea. And look, I debated Professor Lichtman before. I told him his theories about the keys were absurd. I was right. He was wrong. I said he'd lose his keys.
No, you were
couldn't
not
find
right,
him before
and
the
I was
election.
not wrong, and that's a cheap shot, and I won't stand for it.
Well, who won, brother?
You should not be
Who
taking
won?
cheap
Who
shots.
Oh, God, Alan Lichtman is very offended there. Like, Cenk didn't even finish what he was saying. He says that Cenk Uygur is taking cheap shots. Like, he just jumped in and was like, no, you are not right. This is how faculty behaves, guys. I worked with professors for years in higher ed, and this is really how they behave. They really think that nobody else is smarter than them. Nobody knows more than them. Who's this guy, and where does he think he's coming from? How dare you tell me that I'm not wrong? This is the problem. They stay within their little academic bubble, and they believe that nobody can tell them shit.
At me.
Who
You
won?
want to make your
You
point,
live
make your
in a
point.
total
Don't make it
world of
personal.
denial.
I read your own followers' comments, and they all trashed you, every one of them, and supported me. So
Yeah,
quiet with your personal
Yeah,
attacks.
come find out again.
Make whatever
Okay.
point you want.
Yeah.
Don't
Look,
make
you
it
You
personal.
don't know anything. You don't know
You
anything.
attacked me
You
personally.
You're so deluded.
Oh, right. I've only been a professor for 51 years.
On this program,
published
I've never been
13
able
books.
to finish a
How
thought.
many books have you?
Did everybody hear what he just said? Here comes I did all this. I published 13 books. So, oh dear God, because you published 13 books, nobody can tell you that you're wrong. This is the white liberal classist bullshit that I was talking about. If you don't have a PhD, if you haven't published 13 books, which by the way, I consider 13 to be a pretty unlucky number there, Alan, you might want to write another book. Anyway, if you haven't done those things, you can't tell them that they're wrong. It's classist. It comes from these faculty members, especially a lot of white liberals. This is what they think. This is what they think. Cenk, you didn't write 13 books, so you can't really tell me that I'm wrong.
Published. No, because you're personally attacking me again. Say whatever you want, but I'm not going to stand for
brother,
personal
you got it
attacks.
wrong.
Say
You were
whatever you want.
preposterously and stupidly wrong. So, okay, all right. Can I just
Don't
finish
call
a
me
goddamn thought
stupid.
ever on this show?
No, not if you're
Okay,
personally.
well,
I
you proved
admitted
it.
I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's great to see you Democrats all getting
Who
along
taught
so
you
well.
manners?
It's lovely to see a
Can I
post-election
finish a
harmony as you all
goddamn
come
point?
together again.
Hey, Alan, Hey, Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut up juice. So can you just shut up for a second? And
let's go back, because look at what Alan Lichtman did with his arms. Watch this.
I admitted I was wrong. I don't need you to call me stupid.
Okay.
Can I just say, it's great to see you Democrats all getting along so well.
Who taught you manners?
Who taught you manners? Here comes the classist attitude. You guys, what I was telling you about? What I tell you? Here comes the classist attitude. Who taught you manners? If I remember correctly, Alan Lichtman interrupted Cenk first. So, Alan, who taught you manners? Oh my gosh.
It's lovely to see a post-election harmony as you all come together again.
We're just one right now. Hey, Alan, you deserve a tall glass of shut up juice. So can you just shut up for a second?
Notice how he folded his arms? He's like a big baby. Cenk said, shut up, juice. He folded his arms like this. Like, how old are you? He's pouting. Alan Lichtman is seriously sitting here pouting. He's like, what, 70? I think like 70 something years old. My mom she used to tell me, she said, men can be big babies. No offense to the dudes watching, but my mom used to tell me, she said, men can be big babies sometimes, right? Look how he just folds his arms. Like, get out of here.
And let someone who knows what they're doing.
You're so right, Pierre. You're so right. We're so unified right now. You want, so I will not sit here and stand for personal attacks, for blasphemy against me. You don't need to do that. You don't
blasphemy against you. Who the hell are you? Are you Jesus Christ, you loser? Okay, can I just give the correct answer for once? Okay, here we go. So, guys, you're blaming disinformation. There was disinformation. There was the cats and the dogs nonsense. The points you're making about undocumented immigrants, I agree with, Alan, okay? But that didn't cost the election. The main disinformation was about how the election was going to be rigged. And it wasn't rigged. It was dumb. They won easily. There was no need for that disinformation. You guys are missing the whole point. The people who are at fault are not other people. It is the candidate, Kamala Harris, the previous candidate, Joe Biden, Democratic Party, Democratic leadership. You guys don't want to admit that they're the problem. They're the cancer in the Democratic Party. So you blindly lash out at the voters, at information, at social media, and you want to shut down anyone who disagrees with you. That's not the correct answer. There are three wings of the Democratic Party. There's the establishment wing that the great majority, almost everyone on television supports and kisses the ass of and does propaganda for. That wing has led to disaster. They lost to Donald Trump twice, nearly lost to him 3 times. And then the other wing is called the progressive wing, but those are two different sets of people. In the progressive, so-called progressive wing, what you have is the identitarian left, the people who do what the right wing would call woke politics and identity politics, and that is disastrous. That's what the trans ad was at the end, and it cost us. The most popular part of the Democratic Party is the populist left. That is the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign. That part says, let's do super popular economic proposals like paid family leave, higher minimum wage, universal health care, public option. Let's do all of these things. And the establishment goes, no, our corporations don't want that. Our donors don't want that. So we'll just do identity politics. And maybe identity politics will unite the left. But it didn't. Identity politics led to disaster. It was a poison within the Democratic Party, used ironically by the establishment Democrats because they didn't want to talk about popular proposals that we have because their donors hate those proposals.
Okay.
So I have to agree with Cenk there. Like it's true. Like the Democratic Party took identity politics and put it on steroids. Like, and they really thought we can just rely on this. And then they really like went overboard with it, and people didn't fall for it this time. And I just, like Alan Lichtman, like he's really angry. Like you see the look on his face, like he is really not happy that someone told him that he was wrong, but you were wrong. So like a number of people I talked to with, like I said, their vote wasn't based on what they saw on Twitter. Their vote was based on prices. Their vote, and by the way, it's not just groceries. I was at the convenience store earlier today, even at the, I guess gas stations / convenience store. So it's not just groceries. It's other things too. Like, go to the gas station, go to your local gas station or convenience store and buy something that's not food and see if the price is increased. So it just, but man, like he just got very pouty. And honestly, like, what a way to go out, man, right? Like Alan Lichtman, like, is really going out, like, not in a good way. You could have just bowed out gracefully and said, I was wrong and just keep it moving. But you had to get the pouty face and start talking about how many books you wrote and then folding your arms. And what a way to go out, man. Aye. We want to go to part 2. You never think you see that from someone that's, so much older, right? Here's part 2 of that discussion with Cenk and Alan Lichtman.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Professor, I know you got to leave us,
So we'll just do identity politics. And maybe
I don't know what just happened there. I don't know why it did that. So now I have to take it back to where I was. I don't even know where I was. I'm so sorry, guys. It was right with the part when he said, I know you have to go. Okay, right here. Here we go. All right.
Virus and saying that we have to have infrastructure and building, that helped working people in this country. But a lot of lies were told about that history.
Yeah, you can. Yeah, Professor, I know you got to leave us, so just you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah. First of all, let me add a quick fact. There was no massive switch of black voters to Donald Trump. Donald Trump got 13% of the black vote, 11% the last time. That's 2% of a very small segment of voters. So that's one of the big myths of this election.
Nobody said it was massive black support. And I think it's interesting that Alan Lichtman is mentioning what he got from the black vote overall, but he's not mentioning that he did increase his support with black men. The exit polls that I saw showed that he got like 22% of support from black men, Donald Trump did, which is a significant increase from 2020 and 2016. So I didn't hear anybody say he got massive support from black people, but he did increase his support. And as a Republican candidate, that needs to be looked at. So it just, like, this is the thing. You were biased, Alan. You were biased with this, and you taking this some kind of way.
Second big myth is that hindsight is 20/20. We have a lot of Monday morning quarterbacks who, after the fact, are telling us what Harris should and should not have done. And half of them are saying she lost because she was too progressive. She was too open to the charge of being a radical, a socialist. The other half have said, of course, she lost because she wasn't progressive enough. We heard that from Cenk today. It's all sports talk radio without the entertainment. There is no way to know after the fact what she should or should not have done. If she had only done this or that, it would have made a difference.
Actually, there is a way to know, and that was talk to the voters. And people weren't just saying this after the election. People were warning people prior to the election. So if Alan Lichtman got his nose out his book and get those 13 keys out his ass, and he actually went out and talked to the voters, he would have known what people were saying and how people were feeling. We had a number of panels on this channel where a lot of people was like, no, I'm just sitting this one out. Like, I'm not going to participate at all. I'm just going to sit this one out. We had a number of there was one that was in person, actually, but we had a number of conversation with people that were voters. And I kept telling people, I don't think, she's going to have a difficult time winning. And this is why. I said the same thing under Joe Biden. And this is why. You didn't actually talk to the voters. You just went by your 13 keys, your rich ass friends, and your PhDs. So that's part of the problem.
That's just hot air with absolutely no proof. The difference that I bring to the table is a track record of successful prediction based upon how American presidential elections have previously worked as pragmatic decision-making on whether or not the White House party has governed well enough. And then my analysis is based upon what's changed, what's shattered the pattern of 160 years of history. So I have a base for my analysis. I'm not just doing Monday morning quarterbacking. Cenk, you need to learn some manners. Your act is getting really thin.
I mean, brother.
I'm sorry. I thought it was funny. He dangled the keys in front of his face. I guess Alan Lichtman don't have a sense of humor. Don't take him to a comedy show. If you take Alan Lichtman to a comedy show, don't sit in the front row.
I said what was going to go wrong. It did go wrong. I was right. You were wrong in this election spectacularly so with your so-called keys. And now you come and tell us not the Monday morning.
Unlike you, I'm willing to admit when I'm wrong.
Are you ever going to learn the lessons?
Can I just ask, hang on. Just ask, for those who have no idea what the key thing is all about, why are you flashing keys?
Okay, because this brother said that he had these keys and they were going to determine the outcome of the election, and all the keys were rigged in favor of incumbents. And I tried to explain to him, no, there are things outside of the keys. We literally had a debate, and I asked him, what if Joe Biden, this was back when he was defending Joe Biden, which now seems unconscionable, what if Biden came and punched the baby every single day? Would your keys still hold? And he said yes. Okay, well, then you're an unreasonable person.
I was right.
But what I'm most worried about is not the past,
Let me
it's the
explain
future.
why. I was right.
I mean, listen to him.
About
I
Biden.
mean, you have no idea how absurd you sound. Okay.
He has a point. Like the keys favor incumbent, right?
But guys, the most important thing is not between me and Professor Lichtman. God bless you, brother. I know you did a lifetime's worth of work, and I feel a little bit bad about it. The reason I'm saying it is not to rub it in now. It's because I'm worried that in the next primary, you're going to tell people to vote for the establishment Democrat. That all of you on this panel are going to go, oh no, vote for the corporate robot, vote for the corporate robot. And that's going to destroy this party. That's why I'm fighting back so aggressively.
Give me a name.
No, vote for the populist left.
Give me a name.
Well, in the old days, it easily would have been Bernie Sanders.
Who
now
is
he's
it now?
too old. So, look, I would start considering Sean Fain, head of the UAW, Sean O'Brien, head of the Teamsters, Jon Stewart. Go outside of politics. Almost everyone in politics is already corrupted.
He's right. You have to go outside. You have to go outside. You know, union president, I don't see that as a bad idea. I don't agree with Jon Stewart. I don't know how I feel. Again, I told you guys about how I feel about celebrities. I don't know how I feel about celebrities running for office. Like I don't know. I don't want to dip my hand in that. So I don't know how I feel about celebrity politician. Like I just don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. I think Jon Stewart is, a funny comedian, and I think that, if he were to run for president, and then if he were to win, then it's like, where do you draw the line, right? Like, where do you put aside the comedy and all that kind of stuff? I don't know. I don't know. I also don't consider Jon Stewart to be progressive, but I could see like unions, like your everyday work and like I could see that. Like with Sean Fain or the Seans, I could see that. And I think that would really speak to working class people. But yeah, not the DC swamp people. I think Cenk is right about that. I think you need to go outside.
Someone who is not corrupted and who's for the average man.
Harry, you're shaking your head, but I mean, Jon Stewart, if he could be persuaded, I would imagine could be very good as a candidate, couldn't he?
No, I don't take objection to Jon Stewart. I just think we have some people in the Democratic Party who are very talented right now.
Of course he would say that because he's paid by the Democratic Party as a Dem influencer. We covered this guy before, Harry Sisson and his friend Chris. They're paid the Dem influencers. Like that's what they do. There are a couple of people that are influencers that are being paid by different consulting groups to push and promote the Democratic Party. So listen to who he says. This is interesting.
Who could be the Democratic nominee? Governor Shapiro won Pennsylvania by like 20 points.
Governor Shapiro, the guy who called the Palestinian protesters anti-Semitic. Listen to who he recommends. APAC guy. Next.
Westmore in Maryland.
Westmore in Maryland. APAC. Next.
How much more connected to people do you need other than like Westmore, who's great? Raphael Warnock from Georgia won a swing state and is a senator from a swing state. Gretchen Whitmer, who had a trifecta in Michigan for the first time in a long time.
Gretchen Whitmer is not, if you think Kamala Harris had a bad time. So none of those people are progressive. They're all establishment Democrats. But again, he's a paid Democrat influencer. He's paid to promote the Democratic Party. Al Lichtman, I think, can I call you Al? Al, you must have taken this pretty hard because you guys know he quit Twitter right after this. Breaking news. Professor Alan Lichtman, who predicted that Kamala Harris would win the presidency, has just announced he is deactivating his X account and leaving. So, I guess, Alan Lichtman must have had a really bad breakdown. I am done with X. I will be deactivating my account soon. The good news is I'll be over on Blue Sky. You can follow me there. So all the butthurt people seem to be leaving Twitter and going to Blue Sky. Damn, Al. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. And I'll take with me the memories to be my sunshine after the rain. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday. Sorry, guys, I struggled to sing that song. It's hard to do a Boyz II Men song, but bye, Alan. Bye. Oh, man. Let's go to... I can't do the E. Oh, man. Let's go to the comments and we'll head on out of here, guys. Thank you, Flower Bro. United Democracy Project, Democratic Majority for Israel are some of many APAC-aligned PACs that mindful, educated voters miss. Please do a segment showing how diversified and entrenched the Zionist lobby is, not only APAC. Thank you so much for that. That's a good point. I can do that, Flower Bro. And thank you, ABCD. I did not have Cenk rediscovering his cojones on my post-election bingo card. I know that was pretty interesting, pretty good. NG, you can't sing great, but my singing sounds like a dying cat, so I won't. I can do a little bit better with other songs, but not with Boyz II Men. All right, guys, that's it for me. Again, I'm taking Friday off, so I will see you again Tuesday evening live. I have plenty of clips, guys. I've covered a lot of news stories over the past 3 days, so there'll be clips for you. But other than that, please enjoy your weekend. Have a good night. Keep up the fight.